This is the GPL podcast from GopherPuckLive.com.
This is a 10.8% beer. Danker, hop beer.
That's a loaf of bread.
Yes, it is. It's lit. Oh, boy. Jupe making mistakes. I love it. And so I had to train for this marathon.
Make sure you stay awake for the game tomorrow, too.
Wait a second. Hair game on GPL. Just Elite say you guys got stylist. Ote mote. Now, here's Jupiter and Vigo. Good evening and welcome to the GPL podcast, episode number 233. Vigs, a very successful weekend in Hockey Valley.
I think we can officially say the demons have been put in the past about Minnesota's trips out to Happy Valley, and we saw a great performance on Friday night. I think there were a couple things on Saturday I didn't like about the Gophers game, and it brings up a few of those nitpicky worries. But again, at the end of the game, guess who comes through with key plays and takes advantage of their skills? Matthew Nyes, and that's just the magic this team has this year.
Well, we have a guest who actually witnessed these games pretty well this past weekend. He was doing a little color commentary on the BTN podcast, making his 11th appearance on the GPL podcast. Paul Caponigri. Cappy, how are you, man?
I don't know. Any of these numbers you start throwing out there, I just start feeling older and older. But no.
Oh, come on. I'm 50 now. I'm 50.
Right. I'm not 50. But
you're not.
Great to be here as always. It means it's Buckeye time. And you guys can talk to me as much as each other about last week's games because I might actually know them a little better than you.
You probably do because I got this. I don't know if we'll be able to hear this. I got this from after the overtime win of basically your description of what just happened.
Wow, we just got finished.
Yeah, I didn't understand that quote because I didn't remember saying that.
I loved it. I mean, literally, you just got finished by the Gophers.
Yeah, but that's not what it meant, but you can use it.
I'm just going with it.
It was something about Nyes and talking. We had just finished talking about Nyes, right, or something.
Mm-hmm. You were, actually.
Yeah.
And actually, Viggs, I was surprised that he was out there because there was a short shift in between, but he was out there a long time. And even Cap, you saw in that kind of semi-break that he had. He was pretty tired, Viggs, but short rest and then right back on.
Yeah, and he just needs that little bit of space where he can get that big body to protect the puck, and he can make magical things happen out there. I think he's talked about that over the year, how he's learned how to use his knees, how to use his hips, and how to use his shoulders to create separation, protect the puck. And it's just that maturation of a hockey player. And he's basically like an NHL body now playing NCAA hockey, and he understands how to use that body right now.
Well, before we get into that Saturday night, Viggs, your thoughts on the 7-2 victory Friday night. I think even Cappy was saying that they were telling him that they tried to play the Gopher style and it just didn't work out too well for them.
Yeah, Penn State, they survive on pressure and getting in transition. And when they don't put pressure on the other team, they get in trouble. And Minnesota had plenty of space on Friday night, and their skill just leapt off the screen. You just saw players scoring opportunities. I mean, you look at that second period for Logan Cooley. This kid is flashing it all. He's competitive. He's got vision. He's got skating. He can pass the puck. He can shoot the puck. I think he's exceeded all expectations I had for him this season. I was a little nervous. Him coming in, playing center, being top billion player, he's delivered this season.
And Cappy, he doesn't shy away from the physical play either. We saw that play when Fish came into the zone with the puck, and obviously the whistle blowing, he gets knocked over. Cooley is right in his face, causing trouble, getting penalties, and actually getting an extra penalty, a 5-minute major after that when they face mask a little bit. So he's not afraid to mix in some physical stuff too. Excuse me.
No, and that's not even the play that you guys mentioned that, or I saw like people talking about that one on Twitter and stuff, and that's not the play I remembered. I mean, that's a great play that he comes in there, but it's I remember the first period. I think it was the second period, but on Saturday they weren't playing well. You could tell it was just like Penn State gets the early goal. You knew Minnesota wasn't going to they're not going to come out and be dominant again that night. It's hard to do that. But he threw a check on Tyler Paquette, who's probably the biggest Penn State guy, right in front of the bench. And he went out of his way to do it. Like, it wasn't like he had to do it. And it just showed like he was pissed off, quite frankly, at maybe the start of the game. And you just saw his competitiveness come out even more there. And I think that's what maybe an NHL, his Arizona scouts would be like, that's what I love to see the most. He didn't do anything dirty or anything. He just was like, okay, I'm going to bring something else. I'm going to try to get this team going by going after arguably their biggest player and finishing a hard check on him.
Viggs, I mean, you kind of talked about it. I think sometimes it gets the better of him and he takes some stupid penalties and he gets a little too hot-headed, but I think he's calmed that down a bit and he's just using it more to his advantage and not to the detriment of the team.
Well, I think he was getting in trouble when he was doing stuff after the whistle and he was, trying to figure out, how do I get physical in college hockey and do it right and still make a point? And he's now finding ways to do it in the pace of play and, deliver hits like Cappy said, where he's finishing guys along the wall or, being a little bit harder in the corners when he's winning pucks. And you just see that maturity. And I think it takes guys a while to learn how to play physical in college hockey because you'll get penalties if you do it the wrong way. I think we saw that with Sampo Ranta when the coaches were like, hey, Sampo, we need you to be more physical. You're a big body. Go out there and do that. And he would just, run guys. He would take bad hits. He'd take the body to take him out of play too far. And so I think it takes a while for guys to figure out, how do I make that kind of impact in the game?
So a big period, Viggs, Friday night, 5 points, a goal, and 4 assists. It's not like the other guys did bad either. So obviously Cooley, nice. Doug Irwin's the big talk. I'm a little worried about some of the other lines, like the Nelson line. They haven't contributed offensively as much lately.
Yeah, it definitely seems like they're taking a little pressure off when they're on the ice. When they're playing really well, they're all connected. They're applying the forecheck where they just seem to be in sync, where they get on top of pucks almost immediately. They place pucks where their line mates can go and continue to apply pressure. The last couple of games, it seems like they're just a little behind the play, a little late to the dance. And I think it's easier for someone like Cappy to see that than for us, because, when you're just watching the TV camera angle that you get on the broadcast, you don't see how players are setting each other up. When you get that big picture, it's easier to see, are they really that far away from the puck? Are they that far away from making a play? And I think that's something they did well early in the year, and something maybe they'll get back to as the intensity ramps up, but it's just missing right now.
Did you see any of that kind of Friday night game coming at all, Cappy? Because we certainly didn't.
Well,
okay, maybe.
I think they I don't think they played well either game last week against Wisconsin. So, and I thought, and Viggs, you were there at least. Like, Bob doesn't say much in his press conference, or at least he didn't this week. But the one thing he did say was that, hey, and maybe the coach has the room back a little. And, I think once you lose a game and get away with one on Friday night, okay, and the guys, I think both guys, and then the guys we talked to all said detail. Like they all said detail in there. And so like getting back to the details. And then the other factor was, they were coming off a bye week. This time Penn State was coming off their bye week. And I don't know if there's any rhyme or reason for it, but Minnesota was flat the week before, and then Penn State was flat on theirs, and the other team took advantage of it to an extent. And Minnesota did it to them. And then being shorthanded without their D, I think they felt like, oh man, we're a little bit of the underdog here, kind of going on the road, so maybe had just a little bit of an extra chip Friday. And then, they got going early, and then the big line took over in the second period. And then Penn State looked like a team that reminded me when they were playing Michigan, when Hughes scored 4 goals and they just stopped skating, and they looked like they were stuck in quicksand, and they don't have the talent to not skate. If they're not skating, they're in big trouble. And that's just kind of snowball of what I thought Friday happened. But that first goal really kind of set the tone, because that was such a pretty goal. And I think it just kind of got the ball rolling.
I don't think it ever hit the ice. I think Pitlick's pass back.
I mean, if it did, it was
I think he hit it maybe out of the air. I was like, it was just so weird. But yeah, that was a, because it was, they were putting on quite a bit of pressure there, Viggs, and all of a sudden we just, as Cappy said in the podcast, they pulled a Penn State, flipping it up and just throwing it down there. They got a break, a bounce off a glove, and boom, boom, boom. It was in the net, and that's what it did really set the tone for that game.
It did set the tone, and when Minnesota gets going in transition, that's bad news for the other team. We've talked about this, like in a couple of years past, the Gopher talent wasn't quite this elite, and this year they are elite at finishing opportunities, and you just can't do that to Minnesota. I do think one thing about the detail, I asked Jackson Lacombe, what does that mean? Like, what does the detail in your game look like? And he's like, back checking all the way to the net, being on the right side of the puck, and being aware of your shift length and your shift discipline and who's out there on the ice. And I think as you get going deeper in the season, that stuff matters a ton. You really have to recognize, who's out there against me and what's their shift length like. Are we going to be able to take an opportunity against them, or is this one where we need to play it safer and just reload with the next line and gain some momentum? And those are the kinds of details that matter at this time of year. And you have to hope that a veteran team learns those lessons. And Minnesota hasn't done that in the past. And I worry about that in a one and done type game, because there's so much buildup right now. This team is focused on Frozen Four. There's a lot of weeks between now and then.
Cappy, Saturday night, Penn State came out, played much better, played obviously a better overall defensive game. We're actually outshot by Minnesota. So they really changed up their game to keep it close.
Yeah, I think at least like the first, obviously getting the goal early helps.
Yeah.
You score like that, the crowd's in it. I just thought also, okay, you lose 7-2 Friday at home. You're going to get a better effort from them.
Yeah.
And then I don't care how good you are. You win 7-2 Friday and everything's going well for you. It's going to hit you a little mentally and have you just not as crisp to start a game for Minnesota. And I didn't think they were horrible, but you see something Friday, you're like, oh, maybe it'll just happen again. No, that's, it's not going to come easy. So kind of, those two kind of colliding, one coming down from such a great effort and one coming up, I thought it was a somewhat even game.
It was
first half of it, at least. Penn State, I don't know. Cause the 2 weeks before against Ohio State, I think Ohio State outshot them both nights or kept them under 30 shots or right around 30, which is that's just wild. Even when it's a road series and they're not keeping their own shots. But yeah, I don't know what's happened lately, but they have not been stringing the shots together. They're taking those first shots like normal, but they're not getting that second and third one, like what they've done, and then get the pressure in the zone, get the defensive team running around out of position. That's where they get into their bread and butter type of deal. And they haven't been able to do that recently.
I think in that sort of second and third periods, Vigs, on Saturday night, Minnesota was really building. They started taking over the game. And then, a defensive lapse is what you could say. I know Motzko was not happy about giving up that 2-1 goal after playing so well since that, first shot of the game that they allowed in.
Yeah, you're not happy about that goal because it's three players all making critical mistakes. You have a defender behind the net who's mishandling a puck. You have a defender who's trying to keep the puck from coming out to the front of the net, and they're not able to do that. They don't pay enough attention to make a skilled play and block that puck. And then you have a forward who's supposed to be protecting the net who's not even close to his check. And when you have three players all miss critical details at the end of a game, that's going to frustrate a coach. I think the other thing about Saturday that I think frustrated Bob was they missed the net 21 times out of 71 shot attempts. They had 17 shots blocked. That's just not mentally being engaged in the game. And I think that was frustrating for him to see that kind of stuff happen. And, they're not all going to be Picassos, but sometimes when you don't have your A game, you want your team to be a little more disciplined, committing to the ground game and just controlling it rather than leaving it for a toss-up at the end like they did on Saturday.
But then Mr. Nice shows up, Cappy, and gets a nice feed. Snuggerud just comes around the net, feeds it across, goes off a skate. No bodies on on Nice. He buries it. And then they get the overtime winner from Nice after Cooley spins behind the net, comes back, comes around, spins again, and like you said, was like Cal McCarr coming towards the net, and he was like, I'm just gonna dish it off here. So then the show began, and it was kind of neat.
Yeah, that spin was, almost exactly the same.
It was.
And I said on the broadcast, I'm like, he's got a pretty much breakaway here, but he's looking it off kind of. I'm like, well, somebody's got to be over there, right? And he had to make a perfect shot. Sully air, like not there, but he left what he got to whatever he could, and it was
just inside the pipe. It was a great,
and he put it right in the spot. And then the tying goal, actually, to go back to that, Brodzinski went to the net, and
yes.
And their guys went there because that's the play. That's where Snuggerud was going with the puck. So you can't blame them. And Nyes you can't be in the same spot as Brodzinski. Why would you want to do that? So he's on the other side and, right guy in the right spot. And he had to bury that. That barely went in too. So good plays, felt it when Snuggerud was carrying that puck in that, and he's going pretty good. You're like, okay, that something's going here. It doesn't always work out, but you're like, okay, they're in a good spot here.
And honestly, Viggs, these are the kind of games they lost so many times over the past 5 years. They play well. They play well for the game, and then they give up a late goal, and then that's it.
Well, we've been talking about how the fan base is very confident when their team is behind a goal and they pull their goalie, because this team time and time again is showing that they can even it up and take it to OT. And I probably should look it up here at some point, but I got to think they've got like 4 or 5 extra attacker goals this year, which is just amazing because they are not behind very often either.
Yeah, that's pretty wild if they do, because you don't remember too many chasing by one.
And Frank Mazzocco put out today that, Nice scoring 3 overtime goals ties a record for a goal for a Gopher in a career. Even they keep saying no one had more than 3 overtime winners or something like that, and he's got 3 this season.
It's pretty crazy.
It is crazy, and I don't want to take anything away from that, but with it being 3-on-3, it does enhance more goals unless you're going out there a lot too. So I don't want to say it's not incredible. I had 1 overtime goal in my college career, so. It's not easy. So he's got 3, which in 1 year, which is insane. So,
what was it? What was your overtime goal? Who was it against? What was the score?
Western Michigan. I ended up actually being Come on, let's hear it. I got
your own horn.
Nice award that weekend I had a good weekend at Western 1 year. So, but yeah, 1 overtime goal, I think, as I can remember. So him having 3 in 1 year, don't want to, but it does change with the 3-on-3 aspect.
Yes.
But yes, don't want to take too much away from him because he's done his 7 game winning goals now too.
Yes, that's like
So,
2 more than any other. So that's.
Listen to this. I'm not taking a shot at you.
Oh gosh, no.
And then
no, I totally get it.
They do have 4 extra attacker goals this year.
Wow.
That's amazing.
That's a lot.
I can't think of them right now. Did they game?
Lacombe's had 2 like point shot type goals. Nyes has got the one here, and there was one early in the year. I think Nyes might have got 2.
North Dakota, Notre Dame.
North Dakota. That's one I remember.
Penn State, yeah.
The Minnesota games or the Michigan games, they were down in the third, not extra attacker goals though, right? Both games they were down in the third period and came back at home.
I think one of them might have been a late goal though. I don't
know if they were extra attacker though,
But yeah, like you said, Viggs, it's kind of that confidence that you've done it a couple times and you can do it again. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
And I think you watch this team in those situations and they get second, third, fourth, fifth chances because they are so good at getting to loose pucks. As Cappy was saying, Penn State is not able to get those second chances. This Minnesota team, they just figure out how to get in the right spots to win those second chances. And, Bob's a big baseball guy. And he's like, if you give a team extra outs by making errors, you're going to get in trouble. And that's what happens to teams against Minnesota is they're making errors. There's extra outs, and Minnesota is always going to come to the plate swinging.
I think that's the part with the details. Another part with the details is I felt like on Friday night they came back to the front of the net really well on their back check. And then so when Penn State got that first shot, they were there to either get it out or take it and go. And it wasn't giving Penn State that second and third shot where they can build momentum on that shift and, get you in trouble.
Do you think Minnesota took offense by a few people saying they can relax that they were already champions by the night before, Viggs? Because, Moscow kind of went after, Frank a little bit Friday night after that. And I don't know.
Bob is trying to protect his team from the Nick Saban rat poison. The media puts all this rat poison out, and they just try to keep the players away from it. This doesn't mean anything. We should rest. Maybe we should put in the backup goaltender. Maybe we should, mix up the lines and rest our stars. They did on Friday. There's all this stuff that's out there, and Bob's like, I got to try to figure out how to get this team to the finish line. He's not happy with how the Big Ten tournament's going to work.
Yes.
They're going to have the bye. They're going to have the one game. He's hoping that they get a second game, but it's a week later, and then they come to the tournament, whereas you have all these other leagues doing something different. And I don't know what Bob quite wants the Big Ten to do other than add an 8th team, but it's not a great situation coming the end of the year. So he's got to try to find a way to keep them focused while he can.
And then you look at somebody like a Michigan State, not even going to play this weekend, Cappy.
Yeah.
We're trying to hopefully get them to get their at least first league playoff win,
right?
And now they're going to end up, that whole last weekend off, and then they got to come in full 3-game series and try to win, maybe at home, probably on the road, but
right,
it's not a great situation.
They would need help from Wisconsin, and Ohio State, I think, or not? Is it Ohio State? No, not Ohio State. Michigan. They would need Michigan to take care of Notre Dame, and they would need Wisconsin, I believe, to just win one. Because I think it's head-to-head, right? Viggs is the first tiebreaker. Like, if you're series, so I think and Michigan State has that over Penn State. They have the head-to-head record, I believe, because they went 2-1-1 against them. So if Penn State were to split with Wisconsin, they'd be tied for that 4-5 if Michigan were to sweep Notre Dame. Let's say the top 3 were Ohio State, Michigan, and you guys, Minnesota. They would need Penn State to split with Wisconsin for them to, and I think they would be 4-5 with Penn State, I think, and then Notre Dame would be 6. So
it's
Yeah, I mean,
It's tight.
I think for not to get on a big Michigan State thing, but I think for them right now, everything is gravy this year. I think if you're Adam Nightingale, like to be a 500 team near a pairwise conversation and near a home ice spot for the playoffs. If they get it, great. If not, I think, but he's building something there, and this isn't a bad year because I think recruits are looking like, hey, look what he's doing with it. The talent level isn't great, but look what he's doing there. What if we get some talent in here, or higher end talent. So just for Michigan State, I think this is a good building block for them to be. You want them to be a good part of this league.
We do.
The league better.
But like Vig said, they need another team.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm obviously they tried the tournament thing and it didn't work with fans or whatever it was, Vigs, but for the hockey teams, it still works best that way because, like you said, you're playing one weekend, 2 games, maybe 3. The next weekend, you're playing, 3 games or 2 games at least. So, and then you start the tournament. Now you're playing, 2 games in 2 weeks, and that's a tough deal.
Yeah, it's always complicated when you talk to these coaches about what is best at the end of the season for the conference tournament and what's best for them in the NCAA tournament in terms of sites, location, games and days. Because if you're the underdog, you want that neutral site, dead atmosphere, maybe with a chance to get a bid. If you're the team that's always on top, you'd rather play at home and do whatever it is to get you through healthy and maybe sell some tickets. In the regionals, if you're a small team, you probably want the empty buildings and whatnot. You don't want to give advantages to these big teams. So I think there's a lot of coaches out there who are making decisions based on selfish reasons. I think if you were looking is what's best for the college hockey player and what's best to prepare them for the tournament, it's to have the rigor of a couple games, before heading into NCAAs. It's not good to sit at home for the next 3 weeks. Maybe one of those weeks is okay, but not 2 out of 3.
Well,
what do you think, Cappy? What changes would you like to see?
Well, that's what could happen. Say, with the top 4 are looking pretty solid in the NCAA tournament, right? So, say Penn State ends up on the road. Say they split with Wisconsin. They end up at Michigan State. Michigan State beats them. They're in the tournament, and they got to sit around for 3 weeks, pretty much. There'll be 3 weeks between games. If Minnesota somehow were to lose the semifinal, they're going to play in 3 weeks. For me, and there's a lot of logistical stuff, and then you got to think about enough time between games. But for me, maybe I would go. You have 2 weeks, squeeze it down to 2 weekends. You play your best of 3. Maybe you start at Thursday. You do Thursday, Friday, Saturday, if necessary. And then the next weekend, if you want to keep it on the sites, you go Thursday, semifinals, and then Saturday. So there's a day of it goes chalk, and it's Minnesota. And right now, I think it'd be Ohio State right now, who's second officially. Mm-hmm. Ohio State would travel on Saturday, Friday, the day off, and play Saturday against the Gophers for the championship. It's not perfect, but it's at least this 3 weeks. I
too drawn out.
I hate it.
It's too drawn out.
And people argue at the time, we're screwed with basketball. We are right in the heart of all the basketball with all the NCAA tournament, Big Ten tournament, and then the NCAA tournament is Big Ten championship weekend. So it's not going to matter. Your ratings aren't going to go much down. Your attendance shouldn't suffer, I don't think, because it's either, it's going to be there or not, to be honest, whether it's Thursday or Friday for the semifinal. If you squeezed it down, I just think the 3 weeks hurts us.
It does.
So I'd like there at least to be a discussion maybe, but I don't know if that'll happen. But obviously everything would change if you got 8 teams. But even then, I'd still want to see it in 2 weeks.
Yeah, nothing really changes. A team just doesn't get a bye. That's all. But they would still need to change.
But at least, Minnesota would be playing the next.
True.
And playing 2 games minimum. And
True.
then they'd have 2, then 1 and 1. So at least, you're keep continually having games.
Yes.
And it doesn't hurt you to just have one game and one game because you're still playing and, but you're getting a little more rest time. It's the end of the year. Your bodies are beat up a little bit, but you're continuing to play. So, say Arizona State was in the league this year, they'd probably be 7th or 8th, the way that Pairwise has them right now, whatever. And Minnesota would be playing either Wisconsin or Arizona State in the first round. So I don't know. I wish I would be happy to go into these conference meetings or anything, and even if I'm not worried, just to spitball ideas. I say the same thing about NHL and their salary cap that is so anciently pathetic. I'm like, let's start being flexible. Let's go in a room and spitball ideas. I think that's what Big Ten, needs to do with the coaches and get Red Berenson in there. See what get people in there with ideas, and the more you put out there, you might find something that sticks to the wall.
Well, hopefully they'll take a look at it, Viggs.
Well, Bob said on his radio show this week that the coaches have talked about it and they have scenarios that they've talked through. He just isn't willing to share them. But I think all the coaches are frustrated, at least the ones who have aspirations to do well in the NCAA tournament. They are frustrated with this. Again, you have these coaches maybe who aren't aspirational to the NCAA tournament and trying to win championships, and they're just like, what's best for me, rather than what's best for that team when they've earned that shot, which is how I think college hockey should be organized. You should have leagues who say, how do we have our team be in the best position to win an NCAA title? Because that's what's best for our league, not my school trying to win one game.
Right, but and that would be crazy. Who in the Big Ten is not thinking about winning national championships? In the big picture, yes, this year certain are. But you don't think Adam Nightingale now is on the side? Look, we need to get to that. We need to be where Michigan is right now in Minnesota. Tony Granato had 2 years ago had one of the best teams in the country. Penn State and Ohio State aren't thinking, oh, let's just make NCAA tournaments. I don't. I mean, I guess that's true. And they think of it differently a little, but yeah.
I think they're looking at it differently, saying what's our best chance to get a bid into the tournament, not what's the best way for us to prepare ourselves for the tournament. Their thing is, how do I protect my school so I get a bid?
Tournament pretty much every year, and what's gonna But I think most Big Ten teams are gonna think that way at this point. If you look at it now, if Wisconsin somehow turns it around and Michigan State's going where they are, where's the weak link in the Big Ten? Eventually, and that's you want that, but you also are like, they're going to beat each other up to a certain extent. But look at this year. I mean, you got teams aren't even over 500 in the league, and those teams are going to make the NCAA tournament without. I mean, I think Ohio State's at 99.8%. So I mean, can stamp 4 teams pretty much. I'm going to knock on wood a little. Minnesota thing of
0.001
2018. But yeah, I just would love for them to put the Big Ten in a better situation.
All right, let's get more on to Ohio State here. And actually, I kind of want to get you going a little bit, Cappy. Some new arena might be coming, but the men's team aren't going to be playing there. I already saw your eyes kind of roll back into your head a little bit there. Yeah. What the hell is going on over there?
I mean, I don't know enough of the detail, but I mean, I have a pretty good source there that told, when you saw the article come out, you get new rink. But it sounds like, and even now, I mean, it's not even speculation. He came out and said so much as right now we don't know. It depends on really how much money they get, but it's not even that's for to get it up. They're thinking right now they have the money for 1,500 seat, maybe 2,000 seat place, and that if they could get more donors, more money, maybe they get it to 3,000 or so. And if they do that, then the men would play there against when they get those small crowd. They wouldn't do that against the Gophers or Michigan or Penn. Late the second half, they get 8,000-9,000 people in that building. It would be for when they're playing Bowling Green in October and November. But it's more for the women.
Yes,
and then
definitely
practice in too. So I mean, it'd be a nice new practice facility. But I don't know.
It's just
It's
to
just-
me,
it's
it's like the worst thing you could do.
like that hey, more donor money means more seats. So like all of a sudden, if they get 20 million from okay, we got enough for 6,000. Boom, that's the new men's rink. Like it could change. And he literally almost like pleaded that out and said, "Hey, well, more money we get." He did. I'm not even. This isn't like some hidden thing. He said this. So
at least the women are getting taken care of because their facility is an embarrassment. So that part is so good and so great for women's college hockey. But like you said, Vigs, they just can't do this. They've got to find those donors because it would be a foolish move.
Well, it's basically something like once you make that investment, it's not like you can just all of a sudden change it and add another 4,000 seats to the rink if you change your mind. Right. I think you have to be forward thinking. You are in the Big Ten. You are sponsoring men's and women's hockey in one of the biggest conferences in college hockey. This is your chance to make an investment. If you don't, you will forever be handicapping your program in a conference where it seems like everyone is making improvements. Michigan State has made a lot of improvements for the players. You have to think that they'll be making improvements to their rink soon for the fans. Yep. Minnesota, they're shrinking the rink. They're going to be improving the experience of the fans. You're going to have these new competitors coming in with like St. Thomas and Augustana. You're competing for players. If you don't take this opportunity and make that step and solidify your program, you are forever holding them back.
And just to kind of get one last thing about Gene Smith, this is kind of being quoted as his last thing on his list before he leaves. And I'm like, well, then why wouldn't you want to push and get this one big, not even that big. You're talking about 5,000-6,000 seat arena. Mm-hmm. And you go off into the sunset and say your teams who you've had the number one women's team the last 3 years and a men's team that's been top 10 to 15 pretty consistently over the last 7-8 years, gone to a Frozen Four, won a Big Ten regular season. Like, it's not going to get worse if you put something there. The fans do show up the last 3 games. If they get a good in the second half, you're going to have sellouts where people are going to be, you're going to be getting secondary market tickets going for, if you're a 5,500 seat place, you're going to be playing Michigan and Minnesota in February with Big Ten ramifications. I just don't see how you can't find that money for something that could be a 20-year investment. This isn't like, oh, we got to get our money back. And you could build you could add 2 rinks and make it make your money on the side, so to speak, with minor hockey tournaments, all that stuff. So, that's all I got. I don't want to talk about it.
Well, how about that quality outdoor ice where chunks this deep were coming out?
The weather, man.
Oh man, the coaches are saying, "Oh, this is great for hockey," but behind the scenes they're going, "Why are we playing such an important game with points on this crappy ice?"
I mean, you got to do it. Everything else about it was unbelievable, right? I couldn't believe the scene was great. They got stuck with like one of the nicest weather days in Cleveland in the middle of February. It's 45 and sunny, like. Just doesn't happen. The day before it was 34 and snowing. That would have been perfect. I bet the ice would have been perfect throughout. So,
because I was sending you messages on Twitter. What's happening in our game? Because this game's going way over.
Watching that, we're like, so what do we say? And I'm like, man, Fox Sports. I just send you that. I'm like, with it. I don't want to. I'll just let you do that stuff, but.
I think I love those. I love them for non-conference games. I'm not big on league games for this Vigs. We know that Don wasn't that fond of. I mean, he loved the outdoor game as a game, but I don't think he liked it. It was against points when they played Ohio State.
Yeah, I think it's tricky. You kind of want your players to have that experience and reward them because it's a cool. It's a cool deal. Like being outdoors and skating in a different venue is really cool for the players and the families and all the stuff that leads up to it. the jerseys that Ohio State broke out for that game and the goalie pads. I mean, that stuff's pretty special.
Yeah.
But it's too bad the ice is so inconsistent.
They don't have number 27 on their team. That was my number. And I texted Tim Adams, our equipment, like, hey, you make a 27 jersey, because send that my way. I would turn in that one I never got to playing, because that one's better. I'd put that one in the for this one from 2000.
Well, how about the games this weekend, Vigs? Ohio State coming in. Both teams are still playing for, they're not playing for, Ohio State's playing for points. Minnesota's not, but Minnesota's playing for that number 1 overall seed. So any kind of victory against Ohio State just solidifies that even more. What are your thoughts on this weekend coming up?
Well, I thought at the start of the year, Ohio State was one of the most dangerous teams in the Big Ten, just because of their older roster and goaltending and defensemen and just the style of hockey that they play. Steve Rowlick's done a great job at that program the last 5+ years and really has built an identity for Ohio State hockey. And I think it presents a lot of challenges to Minnesota if they don't play a solid game where they protect the puck, where they make smart decisions through the neutral zone, and where they put pucks on net or get to their ground game. I think if you don't do things the right way, Ohio State can expose you. And so it's kind of a risky weekend for Minnesota. I know that Bob's fighting off all that rat poison, saying that these games do matter and they're trying to figure things out. But at the same point, these are still college kids and they see, the schedule. They know what's going on. So it's going to have to be some mind games to figure out how to get the best performance this weekend out of Minnesota, especially with that game on Saturday that's early. We've talked about this a couple times where I get worried about Minnesota when they play that late Friday night game, that early Saturday game. It's just, you got to trick yourself a little bit to get up for it.
It's all about TV, though. People complain they want every game on TV. So if you want every game on TV, Vigs, you're going to have to adjust your times a bit.
Oh, you mean what? This?
Well, even Friday night, 8 o'clock for ESPNU. I know Matt Fick's coming in. He's going to be calling that game.
Yep.
For ESPNU, and I'm not sure who are you guys sending for Big Ten for Saturday.
I think it's Dan and Ben Clymer.
There you go.
And the one thing it's funny is, I think they're doing this because of the basketball too. Is Minnesota basketball is playing before your game, so they like kind of piggybacking when it's not the same sports, because it doesn't make any other. I can't think of any other reason why they would have the Michigan game after you guys, because with the time zone, they're playing at 8 o'clock on Saturday night, where you guys are playing at 4:30, where they easily could have you switch those, and it makes complete sense because Michigan would be playing at 5:30 Eastern time after a 7 o'clock game the night before. So that's pretty close. And instead of having you guys and Ohio State playing at 8 o'clock and then at 4:30, they could have 8 o'clock and at 7 o'clock being the second half of the doubleheader on BTN Saturday. But I think they like having Minnesota basketball go right to the Minnesota hockey, and
and hopefully that Minnesota basketball game doesn't tick off the Minnesota hockey fans. It goes too late. Otherwise, blame Rick Pizzo. Blame Pizzo.
He'll be there with me on Saturdays. So I'll
He's not on Twitter anymore, so we can't.
I will say this. He kind of is, but that's all I'll say.
Yeah, he
Let's
of course he is, but still.
Right. Yes. No.
I'll send him a text. Blame Pizzo.
I guess I'll talk about the series a little bit with Ohio State, and I think the big I was watching them play Penn State the week before, and it was pretty even series, or 2 weeks before, because Penn State had a week off. Penn State late goal wins the game Friday. Ohio State late goal Saturday wins, so they split. But the big difference is special teams. Ohio State has really good special team, especially the penalty kill. Their power play is pretty solid. It's not spectacular, but it's over 20%, I think. But their penalty kill,
deadly. It's deadly.
Just that they're number one at killing them.
And 9 shorthanded goals or something like that?
10 shorthanded goals.
There you go.
Got their 10th on Saturday. I think they're only -5 all year. I think they'd given up 15 power play and gotten 10. At one point, they had more. They were +1 I would say in January, they were +1 while they were shorthanded, which is so I think that, and then Dobish and net I think is a little more solid than Soulier is pretty good, but I think Dobish is right there as the most talented guy in the league, stats aside of everything. But the special teams is where I think Buckeyes put themselves having a chance to maybe get a split at least this weekend.
Viggs, I think I recall the game that Minnesota won at Ohio State. I think Ohio State, 2 of their goals were shorthanded goals.
Yeah, it could be.
I seem to remember that, a couple breakaway goals for them that game.
I think it might have been Burnside had 2 shorties.
Yeah.
Same guy, I think. The second game, right? Because the Buckeyes, it was
the second game. The Buckeyes,
wild game, a lot of weird bounce goals.
Yeah, they didn't play very well that second game, and I think it might have been their only. I'd have to look at the schedule, but or what the score was that second game. But they had, I think, both their goals were shorthanded goals.
Yeah, and I think Dobish got a little fatigued last year during the season, and we haven't seen any of that this year. I don't watch a lot of Buckeye hockey start to finish, but you can watch those condensed games on Big Ten Network Plus, and you can kind of get a feel for how things are going. And whereas last year it seemed like pucks were just kind of finding holes in his drops in the butterfly, those aren't happening this year. And so you're seeing a more consistent goalie down the stretch for Ohio State.
Hold on, just to go off of that, not to plug the network or anything, but
go for it.
Watch the Big Ten in 60s that air on the Big Ten Network, Big Ten hockey in 60s. Have you seen this? They usually do like football and basketball games where they condense it. They do a show every week now. It's called Big Ten Hockey in 60, where they show the highlights of all 6. Like if there's 6 conference games going on, or maybe if it's a non-conference, if it's aired on BTN or Peacock or whatever, they have that, and they have a production assistant or whatever condense it and make an hour show. It has all the highlights of every game.
Yeah, because I've noticed that this year on the schedule is when you pick up a game to go on the replay, you can watch the condensed version, and you can watch a whole series in about 30 minutes. You can watch both games. Less,
because it's mostly just the goals and big save. They're doing each game is a segment, so it's about 7 6-minute segments, maybe, or 6 7-minute segments. Sorry. So each game is one segment of like the 2-game series and the next 2-game series. So like for fans, if you ever wanted to DVR that, then you could kind of cheat and see, Cliff's notes of all the games. Like I said, you want to watch Ohio State from last week because you're going to see them against Minnesota this weekend kind of thing. So they started that last year. It's kind of a cool little thing to have.
I've noticed it more this year. Yeah.
So what happens this weekend, Viggs?
Oh boy. I think there is real potential for Ohio State to come in here and get 4, 5, 6 points. I just get that feeling, Minnesota is maybe going to have Brock Faber play, maybe not. They've got some injury issues up front where they're just kind of guys who are going to the end of the season. I think that's part of the reason we're not seeing some of the consistency of the lines that we saw early in the year. Guys are playing through some stuff. So I just feel like there just might be eyes ahead to that semifinal, and Ohio State can take advantage of that. And one thing that Minnesota has capitalized on this year has been power play goals. That first power play unit has been outstanding all year. I think they're tops in the Big Ten for percentage and goals scored. And they're going to get a challenge this weekend from Ohio State. And if they are trying to rely on that kind of stuff in one line, I have a feeling Ohio State can counter that. They can handle one line. They can handle power play stuff. So I think it's a dangerous weekend for the Gophers.
Interesting. That's not what the Gopher fans want to hear, Viggs. What are you doing?
You're more aggressive than I'm thinking, that's for sure. Yeah, it is interesting because Buckeyes are fighting for that second spot, and they'd love to have that. They'd rather play in the shot against Michigan. Looking ahead, you'd rather be playing Michigan in the semifinal at the shot than at Yost. I mean, that's not that's pretty Captain Obvious stuff, but I think they're gonna need help from Notre Dame if that's to happen. I think the Buckeyes could win one, and then say they do win Friday, then everything else is gravy, and who knows with the quick turnaround, who knows? But yeah, I like the Buckeyes getting points. I just don't know how many. Like, I don't think they're going to get swept clean. Maybe overtime they could lose 5 points. Like they did 2 weeks ago, but I think they're going to find a way to get a point or two at the least.
I'm thinking 5 points to the Gophers. Win Friday night, overtime win Saturday night, just like this past weekend. I'm trying to be Mr. Positive here as we move further into the depths of the season.
I mean, you just never know. Like
you don't.
You don't know how they're going to come out knowing they had a good weekend last weekend, so the positive vibes are back. They're not kind of chip on their shoulder. They might have Faber back. Doesn't mean it's that's a good thing, but I don't know. You say, okay, Brock's here. They're going to get caught watching him to see how he's doing more instead of playing their own a little bit. I don't know.
But it's going to be senior night on Saturday though. They've got it sold out.
Oh yeah.
It's going to be big crowds, Vigs. We're not used to big crowds, for Ohio State. We're just not. Seriously, we're not.
The fans have shown up this year for the Gopher hockey team, as Randy Johnson wrote about in the Star Tribune this week. The fans have been back. We've been talking about it all season. The scan numbers are up. They're actually showing up for games. I think that atmosphere is there, but that afternoon game, I saw someone in the comments say that's overblown. I think we can go back and we could do that condensed game, and you can watch the first period of those early Saturday games all the way through. They're always trying to get to the intermission. Let's get through the first 20, 1-1, 0-0, and then we'll have our legs and game for the second period. You could say it doesn't exist, but it's a real thing.
Was the Penn State series because that was that in October, November? Was that one of those? Was it because I remember that series watching, and I'm thinking, Penn State won the first game, and then they were in the lead after the first period of game 2 on Saturday. I'm like, man, they might sweep them. And then they did tie it up, I think, with a power play goal. And then it was 1-1. And then Brzezinski and Nelson connected for 2 goals in the third. And you're like, okay, they got the split. But for a while there, it looked like, man, Penn State could sweep them here, Mariucci. And I just can't remember if it was one of those.
There were 7 p.m. games, but you're right. Yeah, they didn't score until late in the second period.
It was looking like Penn State sweep them here.
And then the Brzezinski show showed up. Yep.
Yeah, I remember trying to talk to Guy at the post game for that one, and he was just kind of shaking his head. He didn't want to talk to the media. He felt like his team let a chance get away from them, and he was just like, we almost had it, and we gave it away. Kind of was his feeling, I think.
Yeah, and I guess the only thing I was wondering about your point with the time thing, if that was one of those games, because normally it's like, okay, you win Friday night and then you're coming back quick, and yeah, it's a challenge because it's quick to come back. You're like, oh, we already got one. I think it's a different mentality. If say Ohio State were to win on Friday night and then you're coming back quick, you might see maybe the legs jumping early in the game. I don't know. It's a mental thing a lot of the time with that. So I think a lot of it sometimes depends on what happens Friday.
Yeah.
So basically we're all over the place for the results this weekend, which is great. I love it.
Yeah. So officially, I've got Ohio State getting 4 points on the weekend.
I'll say Ohio State's getting 2. I'll say they win in overtime Friday, or even maybe a tight 3-2 win in regulation, something like that, and then Minnesota wins Saturday. So 2-3 points for Ohio State, 3-4 for Minnesota.
Okay, good enough for me.
Yeah, I mean, does it really matter at this point? Because
for Minnesota, it doesn't really.
Oh, if Minnesota can they lose? I guess Quinnipiac maybe could catch them, but aren't they pretty? I don't know how they lose that number 1 overall seed. And even if they don't get the overall, they're pretty locked in Fargo, aren't they? At this point,
they should be. They should be in Fargo against either the 15 or the 16 team.
Right.
That's what should happen. The only way that gets messed up is if North Dakota wins an auto bid and they're a 4 seed, and they'll have to go to Fargo then, and then Minnesota will have to go somewhere else, and they can't go to Allentown probably. So,
to be honest, wouldn't they? I don't think Minnesota's making it, just from what I've seen and what.
Yeah,
what a shame. What a shame.
I know. You never know in that, but they're going to be on the road in the first round.
Yeah, it's going to be tough for them.
It's going to be tough
for them. Well, thanks for joining us, Cappy.
No,
it's always great to have you on.
Flying by.
Uh-oh, Viggs is looking around. He's already looking for his beverage, getting ready for overtime.
Gotta get that beverage ready. It's been a long day here in Minnesota.
It has been.
So,
we'll talk about.
I'm going to be joining you there, Viggs.
Here today, Chicago, which I hate, but it's better tomorrow because tomorrow it'll all be gone and there won't be any rains, whereas you guys are going to be.
It hasn't been bad here. It's
not as bad as it's
they said we were supposed to get over like close to 20 at first. Now I think we might get a foot total from this. It's just something. It's weird. So
still
who knows?
A lot of shoveling.
All right. Of course, we want to thank Cappy for joining us again for this with this week's podcast. Next week we'll be back, and we're just going to be recapping, what happens this weekend and previewing the Big Ten tournament with all the other teams, not Minnesota. For those of you watching, stay tuned for a bit of overtime. For the rest of you, we'll catch you next week on the GPL podcast. All right, there it is, Viggs. What are you pouring?
That looks thick.
It is thick. Look at this. I had to get a chalice for this one.
Like a milkshake.
Yeah. This is a Prize Brewing Company Lost Moon Imperial Stout, barrel aged. I think this is from 2018 or 2019. It was limited to 500 bottles. This is bottle 463. I managed to get the wax off during the music, which was always a challenge, but
nice.
Delicious.
Wow. So you have a go-to store that has all the brandy.
Brandy. Nice. I do have like 2 stores that I'm super loyal to.
That have the big selections and all that.
That have the selections. They know I'm kind of a beer connoisseur and a wine connoisseur and a bourbon connoisseur. So they know that I'm in that stuff. And so they communicate with me. And,
I just love this glass with the puck in it.
Nice. Oh, wow. Sweet.
Girlfriend got that for me.
That's a pretty.
That's waking you up right there.
The glass. I like having flashbacks of my grandfather's days when he used to tell me to pour just the smidge of Diet Right.
Diet Right.
Oh, yeah. Diet Right. Yeah. With his brandy. I think it's usually Christian Brothers.
Diet Right for color.
I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah.
I had my
every year.
I had my first brandy old fashioned in Wisconsin a couple weeks ago at a supper club. It was fun. I had a great time with some Badger fans and stuff. So I literally just picked up a cheap bottle of V&J here just to see. Yeah, I'm like, well, how would I like it by itself? Because I've been a whiskey guy.
Sure.
I like this stuff.
I also like it. Like certain liquors are good when you let it kind of
breathe a bit.
Yeah, kind of. You a little water, like almost like you're having a whiskey and water. To just to take a little bite off of it, it just goes a little smoother. Like doing a rum, so like a nicer rum kind of. But yeah, I don't know. Trying to get less. But I can't do the Captain and Diet Coke run.
So how was the flights in and out of Penn State last weekend?
Pretty good, actually. I was home by like I was home by like 10.
Okay, how hard is it to call a game like that? Do you actually get multiple angles? Is it not really as bad, or is it getting much better?
No, I mean, we're calling it for the most part on what you guys are seeing.
Oh, that's too bad.
We have one TV in the middle that has all their cameras.
Okay, well that's good.
So like goalie were to like leave the net or like the overhead can't, but it's not moving, so you can't see,
Mhm.
oh, the referee behind the play, it's ISO'd on him to see if he's got his hand up. You might not see that referee's hand up at any point during all of a penalty or something. Or if I do see it and Jason maybe didn't see it, maybe I'll give him a little tap or something. Try not to interfere with him, but just or I'll say it. I'll just say, "Oh yeah, there's a penalty coming." I got really too used to it last year. So to be honest, I think 8 or 9 games.
Yeah.
In there, so it's not ideal, but
because you don't get to see them, you don't get to meet the players in person, and like Viggs, you've always said, it's like those behind the scenes, done with the interviews. It's that casual chat you have with the players and coaches where you kind of pick up a lot of things, and you kind of miss that when you're doing like a Zoom meeting earlier that week.
And just some of the body language too, like, means a lot, I think, when you get those interactions. So
feel the crowd, like feeling the Pagula crowd, like the eeriness of how quiet it was in there. It's second period, you could kind of feel it, or you just, or
I did. I couldn't believe how quiet it was
there before to Saturday after they scored early, and it was buzzing, and they were in the game, and that crowd was in it throughout, and would have been awesome. But mostly, like, for what Vigo was saying before earlier, when you're watching a game and watching lines and seeing the puck play away from the puck, seeing the whole ice, the gaps, all that stuff. The one thing you do is you kind of pause and don't be snap to judgment on certain things. You maybe wait a second or two, or 5 or 10 to be correct on things. Or you might say, oh, I think that was Nevers because it was 10 and 18, and you're like, shit, those guys are both right-handed. Look at that name. Was that Nevers or Kurt? Then you're looking for who's out on with them, and you're like, so you can say those things, and it's not a huge mistake because, I mean, you might make that mistake being there too. Or you say maybe it was, so that gives you the out wrong. But sadly, you get used to it enough. Like, I wasn't like betting it, but obviously. The big reason we had to do that actually was because originally they wanted Ben Holden to be on those games with me, but Ben had they asked, it got too late in the game, and he already committed to some other games, and he couldn't get out of that commitment.
And I think that game was not originally supposed to be on TV.
The second one, I don't.
Yeah, the second was going to be. It was going to be a BTN Plus. It was going to be a student thing, wasn't it?
They left it open. I don't, go for they can leave that one open. They kind of
true, but I'm just saying that initially it wasn't on the big TV schedule.
It wasn't on the schedule, and that's why I kind of said it too. And then they were telling me, "Oh yeah, we're doing both." I'm like, "Well, when did that change?" Nobody.
I didn't find out until like a week and a half before. I looked at the Gopher schedule. I'm like, wait a minute, I got to update my schedule because I didn't have it either. So
and so the reason why, so then Jason got put to those games, and the reason why we didn't go is because he was doing a basketball game in Indianapolis on Sunday at like 1 or something, and they just didn't want to risk the travel from getting from Happy Valley on.
Because it's not easy.
Morning to get there by 1 o'clock. Like, you just never know with that airport there and getting out. So they just kept it. They just wanted to be careful with it. So, the pluses were I was home Saturday night. I didn't have to fly, but the minus obviously was the behind the, getting a chat with the guys. And that place is awesome to call games. Like, it's perfect. Your center ice. And then the atmosphere being in that building is pretty good. So, it is what it is. It happens.
It's not how it works, Mr. Johnson. You only get the extra channels with football. That's the only thing. Not even basketball gets the extra channels, do they?
Wait, so with 4 BTN channels, why can't they? Oh, yeah.
Because, football gets the extra
have that, yeah. And even
channels.
I can't even find them. I have Xfinity with all that. I'm like, where is this game? I don't even know where that is. Like, it's channel 1047. I'm like, unless it's Ohio State, I'm not chasing that game down.
I just go stream it, and it'll project to my TV, whatever I choose. So
yeah,
I'm done with channels.
I've been praising BTN Plus all year long. I love watching. Like I said, I could watch the Badger game or watch the Michigan game.
Sure.
that's not on the network. I've been doing it a lot lately. I mean, a couple weeks ago during the NHL All-Star break, I had 4 games streaming on my computer, all BTN plus. One of them was the women's game against Wisconsin, I think, or actually might have been Ohio State. And then I had so many games up because you can.
Yeah.
Yep. Cappy, we're looking for a new sponsor. So if you can hook up Jupe with BTN people, I think he plugs it pretty hard every week.
I do plug it pretty hard. It's a great service.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'll ask. I don't know who to ask. I mean,
somehow the NCAA Frozen Four people sponsor the U.S. College Hockey Online podcast. So, BTN can sponsor us. So it'd be great.
Yeah. Are you guys bigger than them? Probably.
USH? No.
Okay. I don't know.
Well,
I don't know.
I mean, Minnesota.
For podcast numbers,
that's what I'm asking.
We do very well. I mean, for as long as I can remember, for a long time we were always the highest college hockey podcast on Apple's iTunes and rankings and whatnot.
Right, and you guys, not, but Minnesota carries college like Big Ten hockey ratings. Like, why you guys are on 10 to 12 games every year. At least.
I love Starman. I love how he's on CBS Sports Network and they're pushing. They do as many games nationally as Minnesota is on the Big Ten Network the entire season.
I don't think they even do that. They do like
it was close.
Well, if you count the tournament, because they do the 3.
Yeah, but I wasn't even counting that. I think they were doing like 8 or 10 games or something like that. Minnesota was on like 12 times, and it's like
Minnesota for one of their games this year.
Yeah, so
no, what I'm going to be interested in, and maybe for myself, and I want to say selfishly, but the new TV contract next year, there's rumblings or rumors that you would think Peacock would do a lot of college hockey, like Big Ten hockey next year, which why wouldn't they? Because what else are they going to have going on? So that could open the door for.
And those Notre Dame games are great on Peacock.
Like myself and everyone that in our league. And now it doesn't just have to be Notre Dame home games anymore. And that stream, you've said it before, is stream in terms of picture clarity. It is like TV as TV can get. So that'll be interesting to see how that shakes out for next year, because the contract starts, because they already announced their Big Ten football, college football team, broadcasting team. It's like Blackledge and Noah Eagle, I think, are the two for the college Big Ten Saturday night football game for NBC or Peacock or NBC, whichever one. I'm assuming NBC.
Yeah.
So I will see what they do with hockey, because I think they're doing 40 Big Ten. They're streaming 40 Big Ten men's basketball games already. It's been announced.
Really?
Now, I don't know if that's all, if there may be more non-conference games, but yeah, they've already announced that.
So does that become the BTN Plus thing, Viggs, or how does that work?
I think it's going to be separate.
No, it's NBC. They have no affiliation with Big Ten. I think maybe they'll all work together in terms of scheduling. Obviously, they'll have to.
And you're also going to have Paramount Plus coming in for basketball, at least. So you're going to have Big Ten fans that are probably going to have Peacock, BTN, whatever to get Fox, and then Peacock.
I think Peacock $5 a month, right? Because friends are like, I'm going to watch these. Ohio State's at Notre Dame. I'm going to pay for the $5 for this month to watch games, and
then you stream their other shows for a month. It's a bargain.
Oh man, I'm a huge Office fan, and they have all the Office episodes are the extended cut ones.
Oh, okay.
So most of the episodes are like 30 minutes, because they have like 7 or 8 minutes of content you've never seen on the regular episode. So if you're an Office fan, there's my plug for them. But no, so yeah,
I would love to see them on Peacock. And the only thing is, we still have a lot of people, a lot of older fans who don't stream anything. And their broadcast network stuff is getting smaller and smaller and smaller.
Honestly,
you've got Bally's, who's in big trouble right now.
They need help from their sons and daughters. Or
they do, but that's just...
It would take 5 minutes for them to sign them up for it.
Maybe, but a lot of them don't even have internet because they don't need it.
My dad, 82 years old, he's got this all figured out. If he can do it, there's hope out there
It
for,
does.
for the other.
Is your dad a nerd though, Viggs? Is your dad kind of an
No.
old geek? He's not. Well, that's
No,
even
he's-
more power to him.
He's
Doesn't
not. I mean,
I feel like internet is pretty big now. 30
Yeah.
years later.
My mother was always so far away from that stuff. She
No, you know, it's the way as you have to fight for it every time on Twitter. Hey, people, for TV to get these games on the air. You know, this one, like I said, I'd argue that I don't know why I don't think it's going to make a difference in the ratings that if they would have having this Minnesota game after the Minnesota basketball. Because honestly, Minnesota basketball is not very good, right?
Oh, they're terrible
this year.
Know that when they scheduled this 3 months ago or whatever, they didn't know that. But I think it could have been a quick switch. But it is what it is. Both.
We still have more games that are available than any other team. It's not even close. I don't know why people complain so much. Sometimes I think Bally's had a problem with a Wisconsin game a couple weeks ago where he was on a plus. It was hard to get to. I don't know. I was at the game, so it didn't matter to me.
Bally's going to be gone at any minute.
Oh,
I mean, not to get into that whole thing.
We were kind of making fun last night because at the end of the game, the Wild game, it all of a sudden went blank. Technical difficulties for a few minutes, and I was texting to Mike Vindovic, Viggs, who's helps out in the booth, and he said I was standing right next to Anthony. I looked up and I saw we were off the air. I'm like, this is not good.
Was the game over?
It wasn't over because they did come back, and right as they went live, I think
yikes.
The Kings scored to get it within one, but they were off for quite a few minutes. It's like, did they already go bankrupt? We miss it or something?
Yeah, he kind of goes, is it 10:01? Is that significant
Shut her down
for a power bill?
Oh, that whole thing is just so messed up. I don't even know how to explain it anymore.
Yeah, my kids got to go to Matt Dumba's hockey camp on Monday, Hockey Without Limits, and I jumped on the ice because there's all these kids and like they have a couple coaches, but not all of them. But this year they had a bunch of players out helping out. Like Matt Boldy was there, Brandon Duhaime, Matt Shaw, Ryan Reeves, Kalen Addison, Matt Dumba, obviously. And they're all out there helping out. And my kids know who Matt Dumba is. They know who Marc-Andre Fleury is, and they know who Ryan Reeves is. But these other guys, they don't know because they haven't watched a lot of games. Like all these young guys like Shaw and Addison and even Boldy, they're like, I know they play for the Wild, but I don't know who they are.
Wow.
And it's just like these teams are missing out on a generation of fans because, we can stream stuff, but it's just like some kid, they're kind of reliant on their TV in their house and what their parents let them watch or what they can get to. And it's just like they're missing out.
Yeah. The fact that they're not on YouTube or Hulu or anything like that for Bally's, and Dish has removed them.
I mean, it's all over. Bally's only been around for 2 years? Like Fox?
Yeah, maybe
2 years?
Yeah.
Maybe 2, like 1.5.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I was like, oh, what's this Bally? Is it Bally like
Well,
or what? Like, what is this?
they were technically still Fox Sports North until they added the Bally. I mean, they were bought by Sinclair. They kept the name for a little bit, and then they switched to sort of like a stadium,
Right.
sells the rights to, they sell the rights. They sponsored to Bally's, so that's what they did.
Yeah.
So it's just a name. They got some money for it. It's still, was it Diamond Media? Something? Is it the local guy? Is it Mike
Diamond? Mike Diamond is the guy, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, they're having problems with streaming before Gentle Giant.
Anyway, it's a mess. And I think these teams are missing out on a generation of fans who are having trouble accessing their games.
Yeah.
And it's just going to have down the road consequences, I think.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
What's going to happen next year? That's, Gophers play at least 10 or 12 games on whatever channel that is, where the Wild are going to go, or 2/3 of the NHL, right? Or on
Well, even if Bally's does hang around a little bit, they don't have a deal to stream the Twins right now. Their streaming of their app is only the Timberwolves and the Wild, but I don't believe they have the rights for the Twins yet.
wow. Baseball's a month, or a little over a month away.
Yeah, so and they're charging people $20 a month for that service
just to watch local sports, huh?
Yes,
all changing, right?
Yeah.
I don't know any. Did you buy that at all, Viggs? Have you tried that or?
When I had COVID, I signed up for the 7-day free trial so I could get the Hockey Day Minnesota stuff.
Okay.
But then I quickly canceled because I've got other ways to watch.
Because I know they got a lot of bugs and stuff at night. Things just not always quite working great. But.
Yeah. It's been slow to get better. I'm sure it'll be fine at some point, but I saw somebody ask for Cappy's opinion on Frozen 4 picks. Frozen 4. I mean, Ohio State, Minnesota. Who else you got in there? Michigan.
Just 4 Big Ten teams.
4 Big Ten.
So, hey, whatever gets me to Tampa, honestly, as long as somebody makes it, I want to be in Tampa. So, I think will be there either way. I'm thinking about it because even if I'm not working, I'll go to my place down, which is an hour away, and I have there's a men's league tournament there that I play in the week after the Frozen 4.
Wow!
So it's all working out one way or another. I think I'll just go that week before, and I think I can at least get a media credential. It doesn't cost anything. So one way or another, but if
maybe I'll see you there, Cappy.
Hey man, if Minnesota's there, you gotta go. Aren't you going either way?
I'm going either way.
Okay, yeah, no, I'm leaning that way now. Obviously, I'm gonna wait. Maybe I book a plane ticket that I can change, or change it to not on my dime to,
yeah.
If we're going, so I'd love to pick who I think is gonna make it. I think obviously there's a big thing of where everyone goes in these regionals and who's in their regional, because matchups matter, man. Like, I actually thought Ohio State was going to do well last week with Michigan. Michigan's hot, but like they match up well with them because Michigan makes a lot of mistakes. They're unbelievable to watch. I think they're the most polarizing team in hockey. I'm like, I'll throw the NHL in there because Luke right now is ridiculous, but he also makes terrible mistakes. And then the other teams got 4-on-1 breaks, and that shorthanded goal that Ohio State scored. I mean, Michigan was like, Portillo looked like he forgot how to skate, and he's a great skater. He's a great goalie, and it's just like you just don't know what you're going to get from them. And be consistent. And I'm like, if they don't beat themselves and Dobish plays solid in net, they're gonna at least win one game going into that weekend, especially being at home. So, that's the big thing for Michigan. They go into Manchester, right? And they're the number 1 seed, and they're playing Northeastern in the first round.
I don't think anyone wants to play Northeastern.
Right, because they got Devin and Levi in net, and they got a solid team. They're not great, but Michigan could beat them 7-1 or lose 3-1. Really easy. But they're so fun to watch. Like and they haven't even played healthy. Like, say Truscott comes back and they're a fully healthy team, and now Nazar's got some games under his belt. Like, just polarizing to watch and fun to watch, and also waiting for a big mistake or whatever.
Well, like Fantilli throwing the punch the other day. It's like, what are you doing?
And he's gonna win the Hobie Baker. I don't know how he doesn't. He's got like 2 points a game almost. Like, he's got 50 points in 6 games. He's 18. He turned 18 in October. I'm like, I was like, when I was 18, I was just trying to make Mike Hastings not kill me in Omaha. And like, like he had me penalty killing. I was like so thankful for that, because like I was playing 4th line center. I wasn't never a center, but like he threw me there, and I was happy to be in the lineup because our team was so good. But like that was my 18-year-old year, just trying to survive in the USHL. And you got so many 18-year-olds on Minnesota and on Michigan and some other teams that are doing what they're doing. And I'm just like, holy shit. It's just unbelievable what they're doing out there, making it look so easy.
I say bring on Western. I love that matchup. That's a fun game.
I thought Minnesota played great against Western last time in the regional.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's because Minnesota's defensemen match up so well with Western that it makes it a not so intimidating matchup in my mind.
No, I think they could. Well, special teams is big, right? Because I think Western's got it with Poland on the power play. But I think their D could down 5-on-5.
I think Western, because that top line is so dangerous, most teams can't handle it. But if you're Minnesota, it's like, oh, you got your top line? It's like, we're going to send out Cooley, Nyes, and Snuggerud against them, and they won't touch the puck.
And then you're almost not worried about what D goes out there. In top 4 at least, at minimum. I mean, not really anyway. You worried if Luke Middlestat's out there? No. He's going to do fine. What gets in the way of Minnesota is one off day. Or one
Minnesota gets in the way of Minnesota.
Justin Cole's been really good second half, but he had a few games where you're like, he let in 5 or 6, and they weren't all his fault. But you're like, okay, but he's been really good. That one save on Kerwin. Now I don't know if he fully saw it all the way, but he was positioned correctly to fight off what was in front of him.
He pushed and got big, and I was
posted in the perfect spot. Now if Kerwin snipes it 4 inches higher, but he's in the right spot, battling off of the defender and his own guy in front.
I've been critical of Justin Close about being 5'10" and playing goalie. But what I've seen from him in the second half, when he has to push and get big and athletic, he is doing it. He is committing to his read and just being like, well, screw it. And I'm going to make my read. And
when he comes across, he's reaching out with the glove to shorten so the guy can't get it up quick kind of thing. Yeah.
It's a read and cover space. And he's very aware of his limitations and what he has to do to overcome them. And he's more active doing that this year than he was when he first got into game action. Because I think you don't really realize the difference between the two. It's like, okay, I really got to be who's the Nashville goalie who's also 5'10"? Saros. Yeah. It's like you have to be like him and you have to attack every shooter.
Yeah.
You can't sit back.
I think he's just super confident now, having a full year where he was the guy from start to finish, and he's seeing it. Now you're just hoping that it's the whole way through now. It's not he's not just on a hot streak. You hope it's just the way through, because I've been saying it all year, and Bob doesn't. I think the big thing for Bob, right, is he's been in this situation before where he's had the number one team all year, and they get to the NCAA and not this. They've gotten the Frozen Four obviously last year, but getting all the way, and you got to be guessing to a point. Like you push your buttons that you hope that you think are the right buttons to be pushed. Of all the experience you've had, you think the more and more experience I have, the more I know what to do and what not to do. But there's no perfect way to guess, pick the right things. You hope you have enough experience to keep figuring it out and get further and further along. And I just think they have the great too. Like Matthew Nyes, man, he gets it. Like Brock Faber clearly does. I don't know if you guys saw his interview with Dave. It was a pretty good 10 minutes. His hair was hilarious, and the glasses and all. He looks like he's going to be an insurance salesman. Yet he's the Big Ten Player of the Year, most likely, or right next to him. And
mortgage lender. That's what his little
right. But the leadership and how calm he is, and
that
comes in late in the game. And I think not the Matthew Nyes thing is he's like, I need to come back to college and get better before he just clearly has been brought up the right way and has the right mentality of taking the steps, getting better and he's better this year. So if he leaves, great. He's a man now. He's 20 years old and he looks like a man out there. Last year against Minnesota State, it was Minnesota State beat them up. I don't think that comes close to happening this year. Obviously, different teams, and they don't have as old of a team, but he's got the right mindset, and he's a year older now. And I asked him after the game, I'm like, so what's the message with the team? He's like, just keeping consistency. He was very, just consistent playing after day in and day out, no matter who we're playing, if there's what the range is, if it's a Ohio State games that much in terms of the overall. It just seems like talent, besides the talent, they have the right mindset for their leadership. And that's pretty good stuff.
Yeah, I think the one thing with Faber is he just brings a calmness, that entire decor that maybe hasn't been there the last couple of years. Like, you almost had a decor that was like kind of like showing offy for a while. It's like, oh, look at what I can do rather than what I can do for everyone else. And now it's like, it's very supportive.
Sure.
Decor. And Jackson Lacombe, I think, has figured out, what spots do I pick to influence the game? And everybody is kind of following suit. I mean, you talked about Luke Middlestat. He has been the big surprise for me on that back end because he handles contact, he handles physicality, and it's just like he loves it.
I think
he gets a grin on his face. He's like, "Oh yeah, you want to bump me while I go back on a retrieval? Bring it on."
This is what I like. Yeah, that's the first thing I took away from. I had never spoken to him or knew his personality. Only thing I knew about him is he was Casey's younger brother, and you heard his name 3 years ago as a recruit, and then he's here and he plays well, and then talking to him, he's like, this kid just is happy and he loves hockey and he just goes and plays and he's good at it. I mean, being talented helps, but he just goes and play. Oh, who is it? Fantilli. So what? Okay, I'm gonna go do my game. Not just happy to be playing. Not like, oh, I'm better than you. He's just like, hey, I'm gonna go compete and have fun and we'll work it out.
Does anybody here watch the Ted Lasso show on Apple
I've seen
TV?
season 1. I was waiting till season 3 was coming closer to watch season 2 and then go right into 3.
There's like this Mexican striker who plays on the team.
Yeah. Yep.
That's Luke Middlestat.
Right.
He's like, happy to play hockey today. Happy.
And
that is totally him.
Another great thing in the dressing room and on the ice in a practice on a Tuesday in late February where maybe you don't want to be there. Or, it's like, it just has the dog days of the season or whatever. And you're not chasing much right now. And you're like, why can't we get to March where it's when it matters, Those are the little things. It could make that one goal difference in that one game that gets you to where you want to be.
His favorite play this weekend, Viggs?
I think he plays Saturday because it's senior night. And it's his last chance to play Mariucci.
Yeah.
Maybe limited minutes and just see how it goes. But I think
Fish also play as well. They'll play 7.
Yeah.
Fish has been. I loved Fish.
He's a steady player. Like, he skates well for a big guy.
He does.
I couldn't believe. I thought maybe that and I obviously didn't keep close. I thought he maybe transferred or he was also maybe redshirting because, like last year, he was playing really just solid. He's just a solid guy, but obviously you bring in more young guys. There's only room for so many guys in your lineup, and they were dressing only 6 most of the year, right?
Yeah.
So,
7, actually.
Well, but I feel like they had 7 forwards.
Last year, they went with some extra forwards a little more frequently. This year, they've gone 70 pretty much all the way.
And they've been rotating
until this lap because they didn't have.
Correct. Yeah, that was the first weekend they played short on defense, isn't it?
Okay. Yeah, because Chesley is still probably not showing up until March 11th.
Right.
Just because I think it's a bone issue.
And his wrist.
And they just want to let it heal rather than risk it. Like, he could play through it if he.
Right. If this was, why risk it now?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I my guess would be the same. Maybe he plays both. I don't know. Maybe he doesn't just because of the quick time. Maybe it's safe. Just play Saturday. Just so you're not getting that much time off. I guess it won't matter. He's not the guy worried about.
He's not someone to worry about. He plays such a solid game.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see. Just like you're impatient a little bit right now. If you're a Gopher fan, you're like,
it's gonna be a tough finish.
Yeah, I'm not big on that slow finish. Week off, 2 games. Oh,
well, not even that, but like you want to enjoy all of it, but like you're like, God, get me to the tournament, or if you can, knock on wood.
And the thing is, when they go to, they'll probably go to Fargo, and it's gonna be all the North Dakota fans cheering against them because they've already purchased those tickets,
and that's fine. That is totally fine.
I would love that.
Yeah, it'll be brutal.
If I'm a Gopher, I would almost rather have North Dakota fans there.
They'll be there
because I loved going into Yost, and my one of all was in Cornell. Cornell was the best visiting crowd to go in against because they were fun. They got on you, but they weren't like cruel about it. It was just a great college atmosphere. But I loved going into having fans root against you. And it won't be hostile. It'll be like North Dakota fans. He's like, "Oh, you're jealous." Oh, well, we're gonna. I mean, that's what I would be thinking if I was going. So, okay, comparison if we were at Ohio State, was going to that state tournament, and Yost was hosting a regional, and Michigan wasn't in it, and 2,000 Michigan fans came to that game, I would love that. You know what I mean? It would just be fun. Like I think it hurts. It doesn't hurt you. It hurts the.
Yeah, because going out east last year was pretty diseased. I mean, obviously that's the first time that had been successful in a very long time at a regional they didn't host. It kind of got through that barrier.
Yeah, that's scary.
But yeah, Fargo should be better. I mean, yes, there'll be some, North Dakota fans selling their tickets because they're like, my team's not there. But there's going to be, I still think there's going to be at least 2,000 of them there cheering against the Gophers.
Is that a 3-hour drive, 4 hours?
About 4 hours.
It's like 4.
Yeah. 4. I mean, that's not bad. And you never know how the schedule is going to break down. I could see a lot of Gopher fans. Say they're the Thursday, Saturday. I could see and say they're playing RIT, and you hope they win that. I could see a lot of Gopher fans saying, "Oh, we're going to watch that game at home."
That's going to be me.
But I'm going to go Saturday if we're playing BU. I'm just throwing out.
Yeah, I'm thinking about doing that, driving up either like if it's a Thursday, Saturday series, maybe driving up Friday night or even Saturday morning, depending on the time.
Or even if it's Friday, Sunday, I guess you could still do it Sunday.
Yeah.
I don't think I think the latest game on Sunday was like 5:00 last year.
Fargo is Thursday, Saturday, according to Steve here.
They have the schedule. I don't know where I'm
going. I don't know if it's scheduled, but
I don't know where I'm going, and I don't know who I'm doing it with.
Cappy, just fly into MSP, and we'll go up and watch Ohio State BU play on Thursday because they're the 8-9 seed right now.
Yes.
Then we'll stick around in Fargo for the Gopher game.
Friday GPL podcast with Cappy, live show.
I mean, if I'm doing it, I'm there. Of course. What else am I going to be doing that day?
Right.
Well, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure Clay's going. Clay's going to be doing that game.
Well,
or I think Clay's doing. doing Grand Forks.
Put together. I think they were they've been a couple times. They did. I think they're doing the game on Friday. They did the Michigan State game. So my guess is those two will be together. Clay Matvick and Sean Richland will be the one pair, and Boucher Colby Cohen, I think most likely will be in Bridgeport.
Yeah, whatever the one is.
So
closest to him.
And I don't know anything yet other than I'm doing one, is that I'm either going to be in Manchester or Allentown. Then if you're saying Clay's going to Fargo,
I'm pretty sure he is.
I don't know if any of that is set in stone. I have no idea. The other two color play-by-play guys, I don't know who they are. I think they're ESPN staffed guys. Apparently, that's what kind of it won't be. Last year was Ben and Dan got the gigs, but I think they're using ESPN staffers. And then the fourth color guy, from what I've heard, is Ben Clymer. So that might be a thing.
Really?
Not for sure on that. I've just been told by a couple people, it's not a quote.
It's overtime. It's not, doesn't have to be true. It's just hearsay.
If he's in, then maybe he goes to Fargo. I don't know. I fly on the wall.
Yeah, because you're right. Richland is usually with Matvick for the most part.
Yeah. So
and they will be.
They go to
Friday.
I think they were in Allentown last year, where Michigan was. I believe they called that with Quinnipiac and Michigan in that final. So maybe it's whoever this one ESPN guy is with Clymer and Fargo, and then I'm just the soldier. Tell me when and where, and I'll go. But
Jason was pretty good though.
What's that?
Jason was pretty
I
good
like
this
Jason.
weekend. Yeah, I thought he did a nice job.
Yeah. He's a young guy, but he's gotten a lot of reps now in a lot of different sports. Like he has football, basketball, and hockey.
He's like Vosters. That's what Vosters was doing too.
Sure. He's just starting at a lot younger age. I think he's 24.
Jeez.
So,
Crazy.
I don't know if he's done some games. He did one with Pat Micheletti, I think, last year on from BTN Studio, like Ohio State Bowling Green, I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
But no, he's good. He knows the game, and he was easy to work with considering it was our first time. So,
and then Pat was in your position this weekend in the studio,
and he was great. He worked with Megan, and it felt like father-daughter vibes. I thought so when I watched. I thought it was fun. I thought it was good. And Megan's not.
I was actually surprised that. I was surprised that Pizzo didn't stay around for the second game because it was Pizzo for the first game and Pat, and then Megan for the second game.
And that was a scheduled thing. Pizzo works a lot with the.
He does.
And
Pizzo had dinner reservations. He had to.
He takes his time off when he can get it or whatever. So that was pretty fun. I laughed at that because I turned it on before I needed to head over there. And there was the basketball women's game ended real early, and they had like 20 minutes of fill time in there. And him and Micheletti are going back and forth, and I'm just like, I know that.
We have Pat Micheletti on the podcast a lot. You just send it to him, he'll just go.
Oh yeah, and he's pretty. I get my hands going, but he's really handsy. And he's got the suit open. He's just like, yeah. And, he was great.
Kevin, my favorite is when he's on a stream like this and he's on like a phone and he starts doing the hand stuff.
Yeah.
Sometimes he's still holding the phone and it's all over and it's like Grandpa Pat, let's go.
Pat was everywhere the past 2 weeks, Viggs. He was on multiple podcasts, multiple TV stuff. He was everywhere.
That's awesome. No, I was like, Pat, I was almost gonna have. You need some makeup. I don't know.
Someone was asking him about that
because I've noticed him when he goes on. He does some Instagram stuff for BTN and stuff, and like he's a little shiny.
Yes,
you're in the we most don't need it for like what we for regular games and stuff because there's no light and there's not that bright. But when you're in the studio, that light is shining on you pretty hard. And I just put a little stuff on just so I'm not shiny.
Just a little powder, yeah.
Yeah, so
I think it was Beyond the Pond. They were giving him a hard time. Did you put on the makeup? Oh no, I don't do any makeup. And like, maybe you should be.
I mean, honestly, they have, since COVID, they haven't had a makeup person. You got to do it yourself. But back in the day, like you sat in a chair for like first 6 years or so, and I heard Ida, she was the nicest lady ever. You'd sit like you're getting a haircut. She put the cover on you. You're locked in, and she would spend 10 minutes on you. I'm like, man, I don't think I need this, but
she's like, you do.
I'm gonna let you do this. I got a little good fun story. I think it was the first year that they did the basketball hockey day at Madison Square Garden.
Yep.
And it was awesome because it was Penn State, Michigan for both, and the place was packed. It was an awesome experience. And I was calling the game with Dan. And it was my first time kind of going where I had to like throw makeup on for myself or thought I needed to. And so I asked Chiquita the week before, can I get like something to, just some basic stuff and she gave me this, and I didn't know what the hell to do. So I'm up on the media concourse in Madison Square Garden. It's about an hour before, and I go into the bathroom and I take this it was dark and I didn't know this at the time. So I'm just, do this. And now I didn't know that you should be, like knocking it a little bit first. Like, so I start throwing, you could probably, I don't know, you can't see this. I think I have it on my, my first highlight reel from
like a reel out there. Yeah.
And so I go and I do the pregame show at Pizzo and I get a text from my sister and she's like, did you go tanning? Like this is I'm between going live to start the game and I'm like, because she's sitting with her friends, like, yeah, we saw you. You look really tan. I'm like, what? And I'm like, what? I don't know. Like, I put makeup on. I don't know how much to put on. She's getting me in my head, and I'm like, fuck, I gotta go out and start this game in like 5 minutes. And then I go do the game. I don't know what I look like, as far as I know. And then I get the next day or whatever after, and I'm like fucking orange like a pumpkin. And I'm like,
Played golf all day before you called the game. I mean,
yeah,
what do you expect?
Oh, fuck's sakes. I'm like, a big game. Like, there's 17,000 people in Madison Square Garden. Like, this place is awesome. And I'm like, this is what and that's what I did. I'm like,
I looked like an Oompa Loompa.
a little bit. If you watch that little part, and I'm like, oh. So I go back the next week and I asked Chiquita for like a very light one, and she's like, yeah, you gotta, you brush on, you put it on the brush, and then you tap it against the sink or whatever to, and then you lightly put it on. I'm like, okay, well, that would have been good notes to give me last week.
She's like, if you were to tip me Jackson, or Hamilton.
Yeah, well, I would have after, but now you're getting less because I look like an orange pumpkin. Like, I look like an Oompa Loompa from Wally Wonka. That was exactly what it looked like. And to get that text from my sister, they look probably a little more detail.
True.
But still. Yeah.
So, Cappy, you get show notes from your sister. Do you get show notes from like the Big Ten or anybody about, calling the games or how things are going? Do you have like sit downs like once a year, or what happens?
That's a good question. I have gotten, I got notes. Oh, that might be a goal. I got notes last year once, and that was it in the 10th year here. Right. And then once from a producer, we were just sitting there. This is like my second or third year, maybe second year. And, I cringe watching back myself the first couple of years because I'm so like a robot, and you're just trying to like get stuff out. And even like he just came and sat next to me. We're just talking. He's like, yeah, man, just like talk like you're talking to your friends about hockey. Loosen up a little. And I slowly have over the years, and now I think I'm to that point where I was talking to Guy Gadowski the other day. He's like, man, you've really. Yeah, you like kind of let it go on TV. It's great, man. Like, hey, great. That means I sucked really bad before, whatever, right, guys? Like, no, I'm just saying you just seem very comfortable on TV now. And I'm like, I guess I'm going to take that as a compliment. But like, yeah, watching first couple of years,
but it's the same for anything new you do. We started doing this when we started doing this podcast, we were so bad.
Of course.
I mean, it was terrible, but you learn through experience. You get better and better, and obviously now we're doing TV, kind of like just like TV or similar to it. And
the production is higher
value.
Well, yeah, the production's higher, but it's just you get used to doing it. You get used to like just like looking at the camera has got to be weird for you at first when you're doing this because okay, someone's in your ear, someone's talking to you. It's just
totally.
It's weird not to look at the screen all the time.
Right, I guess, especially in the studio, because you're not thinking so much when you're doing the games. You're thinking more of like,
yeah,
okay, when can I speak? When, like, that's by far the hardest thing with hockey is making sure you're not
stepping on somebody. Yep.
Or, but when you're in the studio, it was more of like thinking about saying the right things or not thinking about things instead of being relaxed. So you're uptight because you're thinking, I want to make sure I got the content right. Am I looking at the right camera? This and that. And I'm like, at this point, you're like, man, I that stuff is not thought about. So you're just thinking about having fun and, it's work. But it's also like the game and it's fun. Like, I'm not going to make this more than it is. I'm going to have more fun with this. And then with Pizzo, it's really easy to do that. So, yeah, I don't know. Practice.
Yeah. And it's true. It depends on who you're working with. If someone they lead you so well. He obviously knows the sport more than a lot of people, the hosts normally do.
Totally. So the week before I was with Mike Hall, and he knows he doesn't know a ton about hockey. So he just feeds me like, with Pizzo, it's back and forth a lot more. With Mike Hall, or say if it was Megan, right? She would know to just get it to the hockey guy, let him talk more.
Mhm.
With these, it's more like I could ask him questions, or I'll say, hey, with the goalies or something like that. So I obviously like Pease the most. We've been friends now for 2 years, but I like Mike's funny, and
He is.
it's fun to work with him once in a while, and I can joke with him a little more. Not that I can't joke with Pizzo, but it's just a different feeling, and it's fun. Either way, and the fact that I'm sitting on TV talking about it, and they're paying me to do it, I'm gonna have fun now. Like that's one thing I've just relaxed.
Mm-hmm.
It's not easy, but it's repetitive. Like hockey, I sucked when I was a kid, but you practice enough, you start getting better at it. So, that part's fun, and I don't know. It's like even that show. I love that we're doing this show now where they're allowing me to come on and do a hockey segment. I think almost every week I've been on this year. The big part of that is one of the producer is a big hockey. He pushes to have a hockey segment every week, and obviously that helps me. I love going on and selling our game because it's very football and basketball loaded, which carry the mail, but I love to get on there because then we can talk about our sport and try to push it. I mean, like I said, this is the healthiest the Big Ten's ever been, and I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon, to be honest, because Minnesota's recruiting isn't going down. I think it's going to be more spread out a little with Michigan State maybe stealing some recruits and whatnot, but I think this is where you envisioned 10 years ago where the Big Ten would be.
Yes.
And it was funny. I was talking about that on our Zoom call, and he's like, think about when it started. Michigan and Michigan State. Michigan had just missed the tournament for the first time, so they were like at the bottom of where they could possibly be. Michigan State was down. Penn State was brand new. So
Wisconsin was down.
Well, Wisconsin was good right at the start because they won the first Big Ten because you guys got upset by Ohio.
Well, in the playoff maybe, but the regular
playoffs, right? You guys, regular season, they were up there at the start. But you guys and them came in ready to roll and
ready to go.
Yeah. Ready. Ohio State was it was a solid, not great. But those other teams, those other three, a brand new team and two teams that you expected to be good were in a really bad spot for them. Yeah. And for Michigan to make tournament, 23 years, that's incredible. I don't know if that'll ever be, maybe Minnesota now on the streak they're on, but
that's tough.
It was just the worst time it was the horrible timing for that. And it's now, and then, with you guys and Minnesota fans not happy about it, it just was like a bad storm and we're out of it now. And it's pretty blue skies and sunny right now, I'd say.
I mean, the recruiting classes that Bob has coming in are just stacked. Like the next three all look really promising.
What do you guys think of? What do you think is going to happen this year? Who's leaving?
Snuggerud stays.
I think Nyes and Cooley leave.
You think Cooley? What's funny is I play hockey today and with Cooley's agent.
You probably know better than me then. That's for sure.
The thing is, it's going to be weird. He'll be going from a 10,000 seat arena to a 5,000 seat arena,
and also just going to that organization.
Oh, but it's not like he's going to play 4 years here and try to get out of that.
No.
I feel like for him, it's play 3 years, get to my RFA deal, get to 27.
Got to play 6 years though, right?
Yeah.
Of course, he the second half of this year showed that of course he could be playing the NHL now. Yeah. I mean, there's a pretty good track record now of guys staying a little bit longer and helping. I'm not saying he will.
Yeah, I think it's a schooling thing more than anything else.
Well, if he doesn't like school, then see you later. I mean, Ryan Kessler hated school, and that's why he left Ohio State.
I don't think Matty Beniers loves school, and that's why he came back.
Harvard. I think Matty Beniers, and he wanted to be a dermatologist. His family's, you could talk about some other guy. I don't know. Those guys all stayed 2 years that didn't happen.
Owen Power loves school.
I think he signed it. It was fine.
I feel like
it's not that hard, guys. It's really not.
I agree.
Especially if you're only generally taking the general ed classes. You have enough resources to help you kind of baby you along if needed. But most of these kids are smart enough to figure it out.
Are they smart enough to know that when they play in the Big Ten, they get catered meals everywhere, they charter flight everywhere, they have strength and conditioning coaches that are elite,
and they have tutors
to help you through everything else
in your education. If you're struggling in something, they will make you go to the teacher. The schooling part's, I'm not going to say it's easy. It's not easy, but if you work hard in hockey, you can figure out school enough.
But my perspective is Cooley, I don't think, is a college hockey kid, and I think he wants to be professional. I think Jimmy Snuggerud, I think if you watch any Gopher hockey game, look who gets featured on the camera. It's his dad. It's his grandfather. Like, there is a connection to the game there that he wants to be. I think Matthew Nyes, he's a player who, probably could have come in earlier, but he wanted to stay that extra year in the USHL. And he went through some tough times and got better because of it. I think that helped him handle this early part of this season where it didn't come super easy, but then like a month or two later, it did seem to come easy.
Well, and
because he'd been through that before.
Right. And those guys now, like, I think that Cooley thing where you guys talked about his maturity, you just don't know how fast it kind of clicks in, and it's clicked in pretty fast because he got some really dumb penalties in the first half.
Oh yeah.
I think everyone knew who he was. He's the third pick. He's this star young player. We're going to go after him. And I think he's learned to handle that to where now teams aren't doing that because they're like, it's just going to make him mad. And he's going to play better. Honestly, to an extent. And line mates are so good too. And they have this chemistry that you're not trying to beat them up. It's not going to work.
It's not going to work.
You're not going to bully them. Is not going to work. Especially Matt Nyes is huge. Snuggerud's a pretty big kid. And then Cooley's tough for his size, and he's got the edges that he can spin off anything, So, yeah.
They're still going to need someone else to step up, like a Pitlick, a Hughlin, a Nelson, somebody like that. You're not going to be able to win the championship on that line, I'm thinking, Bees.
But they don't. I said at the start of the second game, the Nelson line was the best line. They didn't score, but they at least kind of build some momentum for the Gopher offense, which can be okay. They didn't score, but at least it kind of, it kept the game as back and forth, not one-sided with Penn State early on. Kept it 1-0 game. That doesn't always mean everything, but I don't know. The Pitlick can look like Cooley at times, and then there's times where you won't even notice him.
He just doesn't have that edge to his game that Cooley does.
Right.
But he has a lot of the skill stuff.
Right. So when he's confident and things are going for him, look out. He is cool. Yeah. Like, you almost can mistake the two at times if he's going well. So, yeah. Huglin's kind of a mystery. I don't know if is his offense ever going to is he ever going to be that 30-40 point guy? I don't know.
I don't think he is.
Really good second line, third line center. But then I think he's got obviously pro prospects because he can do that probably at the next level too.
Right. He's very much like that third, fourth line player that he'll produce that and he'll be consistent. He won't make mistakes. He'll be fine.
Really good. I think.
So you're highlighting Kurth there, Viggs.
But I just think Kurth is that depth scoring piece that you just notice he's playing a little bit more confident, like with the way when the puck gets on his stick, he's not rushing it as much as he was earlier in the season. He's starting to make some better plays.
Sure.
Because he's got a track record, played very well in the USHL. Sure. Just has struggled to find his spot. And I think Bob is trying to put him in spots to be successful. And it's starting to come a little bit. So I think him down the stretch will be key.
Sure. I mean, you go from being a go-to guy, I'm assuming, on his team in the USHL, right?
For everything, yeah.
You're in this star team, and you're like the 8th option, which is
A couple of people saying Brodzinski too.
Brodzinski, man, he's just kind of comes along, kind of hangs around there, and
he's that horse where the water has to come to him. You can't bring him to the water. You know what I mean? It's like every once in a while you got this horse that's just like, I'm not a horse guy, but that's my analogy.
One where he towed to the middle a little, and then he went far side and missed just wide. I'm like, how did he not go high glove bar there? That's what I thought he would do.
Yeah.
But,
he's kind of a bar down kind of guy.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I thought for sure. But he did that I think he did that at Notre Dame in that Michigan State game, but he towed and he went far side. He didn't go block. He didn't go bar. So I don't know that he's trying to keep the goalies on their toes, but
he knows they got film on him. So
yeah. So I don't know. You just need them to contribute at times.
Yeah.
You don't need them to be, like even if it's a small thing, which I in an NCAA tournament game, maybe they won Friday easily, right? They're in Sunday's game and they start slow, and the top line starts slow because they played great on the first game, but that line with Nevers, they play well. Maybe they don't score, but they keep them on track to have some momentum that give time for those other guys to get their wheels going. That little thing might be a thing in an NCAA tournament game or a Frozen Four game.
Mm-hmm.
There's just a lot. There's a lot to like. I've been pumping their tires all year.
It's an easy team to pump tires with.
It's fun. It's cool, and I like and the guys seem really good, which helps. And
yes.
seem like the right kind of guys, which is good because it's not easy. It's not easy when you're getting told how good you are all the time to be a guy.
I see the kind of guys they are. Somebody like a Faber. I was shooting in the box a month or so ago. Second period, so the defensemen come in first. They're right next to me, literally can touch me. And Faber, before each period, puts the water bottle to his face, pours it in his mouth, sprays it all over his face. It just goes all over me. And he's like, oh, gosh, I'm so sorry. I mean, the fact that the kid's just, he's that aware. Because you know how people can be very unaware of themselves. He is so aware, and he's so,
about to start an intense game, so you're in that game mode.
And he's just so aware, and he's like, oh, geez, I'm so sorry. I'm like, dude, just don't worry about it.
Yeah. That's good. I mean,
all
the elements are there. We'll see what happens.
It is all about how it goes down the stretch, though. So,
who's the next Minnesota Golden Gopher goalie?
They just signed a kid.
Done.
They just signed a kid from Canada, Nathan Airy, who is an experienced BCHL goalie.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like he will be competing for starts next year. So he's an older goalie with Bardo.
Oh, so
there's some people are wondering if Close will come back because he could, but that's kind of off limits for questioning right now. You'll get a real stern, crazy kind of look. You're asking me that now? It's gotten real tense.
After we win it all.
Yeah, it's gotten real tense in the media lately. Sure. Like with Bob. Like Bob is just like, we're at a weird spot right now, and everything is kind of set on my edge.
COVID rule is gone.
Yeah, I know. He wishes everything was on Zoom right now.
As much as it'd be nice, I got an option to have this guy back for another year to but I don't want to deal with answering these guys. Keep about that. But it'll be interesting. He'll be 25 next year, which is, pretty old. But
but he's not like a pro goalie,
right? He's
a
potential GPL guest. Viggs.
I could see him being a pro. I could see him getting a decent deal in Europe, maybe. Not a great deal, but he could continue his career, is what I'm saying.
You know what I could see him doing? Being a goalie coach.
That's
like,
but I could see wanting to go play a couple of years. I'm a big fan of that. Go have some fun in your 20s.
Just do it. Get the experience.
Go to wherever and have some fun. Life doesn't need to start at 23, 24. My life didn't start till I was 30. And I'm glad I did it that way, because if I had to like grind it out when I was 22, like,
No.
I now, not all my experiences were great playing minor league hockey. There's a lot of terrible ones, but everyone's different. Relationships, girlfriends, all that kind of stuff comes into it. But, I would say don't be in any rush to start some job.
Go to Amsterdam, as Chris L says.
Go to Amsterdam. They got to leave there, go play there, go chill out, do it all. Go to Italy. I tried to get I got a call from a guy after I graduated that coached in Italy, and he's like, "Hey, I know you're probably not going to now, but you like to start the process of trying to get your Italian passport." I'm like, "Sure." I didn't know what, I'm like, playing Italy, sure, sometime maybe. And so I looked into it, and unfortunately for me, my family lineage didn't work out, because my great grandfather or whoever came over declared American citizenship.
You're just one link short.
Pretty much that. But if I would have got my Italian passport, I'd probably be player coach right now still, or something. Like, I'd have 4 kids and living in northern Italy, chilling out. Had played years of pro hockey in Italy and may never have came back. Who knows? I'm not saying, but that would have been something I would have loved to have done.
We used to joke in my family, we have a very direct line to Norway with
Okay.
our heritage.
Nice.
It's like, could we have figured out a way to get a Norwegian passport and figured out how to be a net presence guy in the Norwegian Hockey League? I don't know. I mean, 6'2", 240 in front of the net. Who's going to move me, Cappy? Huh?
You don't want to chase that Olympic ice sheet, but just get in front of the power play and cause trouble.
There's a reason we had the meat line, Viggs. You were the meat line.
Yeah.
Because you're a big kid.
You play offensive line in college and you get big. So
you were a very valuable like American or Canadian if you had a passport for Germany. Like, when I played in Germany, the best team was I can't remember the city, but they had 5
Americans that had German heritage.
They're all Canadian, because I didn't know any of them, but they're all really good players. So they had their 5, and then they had another 6 that were there. So they had 11 North American players, and 90% of the North American players were the best players in the league. And so they had a team because they had 11 and we had 5 or 6, and they would get the better ones because they had the better team with more attendance, and they could pay more money to the players. So that's how they did it. And so it was very valuable to have a passport, especially if you weren't like a great player. Obviously if you get like Switzerland, because like they get like 3 only. They get very few Americans.
Exceptions. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Italy would have been fun. I've been there. Go if you haven't. It's amazing.
Florence was a good time.
Oh,
I had a good time. Drank a lot of wine there. Good times.
Food.
Viggs, right before we came on, I pointed you towards a little article about attendance that our favorite guy Randy Johnson put out that had some graphs that looked a lot like yours from all your articles you've done over the years, which is whatever. But he also did publish a photo I took of the game you covered, Cappy,
with
of
my
that
guy watching
empty game at Mariucci.
Watching Foster's, doing his thing last night, obviously, and then tonight he's doing the Hawks Dallas, and I'm like, man, that's not that long ago.
It was 2019, March of 2019.
4 years.
And I'm happy for Randy. He put I've never had a photo in the Star Tribune. Apparently, it's going to be in the print edition too. So that makes me very happy. I think that's very cool. Yeah, right. Just trying to get my name out there, Viggs.
What, 700 people at those games?
1,800 sold, right,
no
Viggs?
Distributed.
Yeah. There you go.
Not sold.
Half of.
That's where I got that great picture of you and Voster's at the game. You're all kind of standing there. I'm like, oh my God, this is so diseased.
I want to say that was the first time I worked with him. Maybe
I think it was.
And it was maybe his second year or first year of doing hockey, like at BTN or really anything other than maybe I think he did student radio at Wisconsin a little bit.
Yes.
He's a smart guy. He's figured it out pretty fast at the NFL level.
That was a great call last night. Even though the goal was called off, I'm like, that was a great call.
And you know what messed that up is the TV had a different clock than the clock, so people were pissed.
Didn't that happen in the Olympics or somewhere else? It happened recently where the clock wasn't the same on TV as it was in the game.
I'm feeling like that happens a lot, yet it's usually not an issue because there's not many plays that happens, right?
Yeah.
It happened at a regional game last year, I think.
Game in North Dakota.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go then.
Yeah.
Because it was
people it was the AHL rank and people were like, what the hell?
Right.
It took forever to figure out.
The last night, what happened, the green light went on, which is the official time set. And that went on before the .1. So that was that different, But that was a good call. I gave him a little. Yeah, that was pretty sweet. And who knows? That might be Patrick Kane's last home game.
Could be.
Not a terrible way, but yeah, Foster's has come a long way. He's doing it, doing good things. And he's still I mean, I think Sunday he did a freaking basketball game because the Blackhawks were on ESPN Plus.
Yep.
So go do a Houston basketball game with Robbie Hummel on the radio. He's just a worker. He freaking
That's hilarious. Yeah.
Loves sports. He loves all of it. So, yeah. And hockey's obviously the game he knew the least coming in because he, it's hard. It's a hard sport. He didn't grow
It's not easy. No.
And he's just smart. Like in 5 years, you'll be like, this guy didn't know hockey 10 years ago because certainly or not know it, but know the nuances and to make it sound certain ways. And clearly, like I said, 5 years that'll be a faint memory.
Fantilli, right, Hobie?
I mean, when is that voted, Don? When's the final? Because I don't know if Matty Nyes goes on a ripper here, but they don't have enough games, right?
It kind of happens at the
Big Ten
conference tournament.
So
because it happens before the regionals
that week. So that March 18th from there to the next, when it gets dropped to 3, or they vote and they know it's the top 3 and that's who they invite.
Yeah, they know who the top 3 are, and a committee decides it. So it's not like one of those voting things where it's pure stats.
Sure.
Like you're saying, oh yeah, 2 points a game, Fantilli or whatever,
Oh, and
it's a different voting model for the Hobie. So
yeah,
I don't think Fantilli gets it.
And he has a few hiccups, not just the penalty, but he missed games and then he left for Canada.
Maybe spit on a fan at Mariucci.
Did he really?
That's the rumor we've heard.
I don't know. I mean, well, look, if Kyle Connor didn't win the Hobie Baker, then nobody's safe.
Yeah.
He had 3 points and he didn't win. Insane. He had another 18-year-old, 73 points.
And he's Canadian.
Well, Fantilli's Canadian. So,
right.
No, I think it's still out on the table. I think the 2 Gophers that aren't on it is kind of funny, but I guess you can't have 4 guys on there for it or whatever. But
the way the Hobie works is that you have just an initial nomination thing, and at the end of the season, there's an actual official one.
I mean, how would Cooley and Snugger not be part of that?
Right.
How would they not? Nyes has got 20 goals now. I mean, he's there too. And then Jackson Lacomb's got 31 points in games. I don't know. Almost maybe it's too many good Gophers.
That is an issue.
The vote.
I just think because it comes down to a committee, I don't think you can say there's too many Gophers.
No.
Because the committee will figure it out.
Sure.
You just got to be in that conversation, that top 10, that Hobie hat trick.
Here's the guy that might win it. That's talked about it for sure, but he's going to have a few more games because he's got the playoffs. Is Luke Hughes.
Yeah,
he's for sure. I mean, we're picky. Like I thought he was average at best in the first half of the year.
Yes,
but he still had 20 points or whatever, and he's been much better after World Juniors. And game against Penn State was insane. Like you just don't see that. He ripped 4 goals, a defenseman. Huh? It's crazy. So he's got more games. He's got this weekend. He's got then the playoffs, and then possibly boom, boom. He's got the door, and as it, he's got the Cale Makar kind of thing going for him if he could. So
and so also to go at the Big Ten, you're not putting your players in the best position to shine for the Hobie either at the end of the year, because all that voting takes place at the conference tournament finale. By the time you get the NCAA regionals, voting's all done.
Right. So, say he goes on a heater, he can only have that one game on that Saturday and then the next Saturday.
Yep.
But he is on national, the TV exposure is good for those games, and if he
does
good things, it's enough. I mean, he's near 40 points. I think he could get to 50 if he gets 50 points in the next 5 games. If he 10 points in the next 5 games. They're going to play 2, maybe 3. So that's 5. They could play 7 games.
Yep.
6, maybe 7. He could easily get 10 points in those games. He's at 50 points, and they maybe win the Big Ten, or lose Minnesota in the final. There's a lot still out there, I think. But
yeah, it's still too soon.
Good for getting a Hobie, and winning a national championship. Hey, honestly, it's kind of weird that they haven't. That it's been since 2007, and it's from Michigan State. In which, no offense to them, but that they have not done well since.
Mm-mm.
It's a long time.
And Michigan, what, 97?
98. No, should have won, and then the next they lost all those players.
Yep, you're right.
And they win with a bunch of freshmen the next year. And then you got, no, it's Minnesota, my years when I was playing. And it's been almost 20 years. So don't remind me.
It's been 20 years for Minnesota, so there you go.
To this year, right? Yeah. 2003. Mm-hmm. So it's time. It's time.
It is. I'm all for it. We're all for it.
time to do it in the big moment, man. So.
All right, it's 11:41, guys.
I got one last question for Cappy.
Let's hear it.
Cappy, you mentioned about the puck being teed up between the ladies' tees.
Yes.
This weekend. Did you hear about that from your sister?
No. I got that from Matt Shepard.
Matt Shepard.
20 years ago, I think.
I remember hearing that. Yep.
And we did an interview. It was when I was playing. I was always the person that asked Leanne, the SID at Ohio State, always knew to come to me if they were going to want to interview a player. So I'm like, because I want to do this stuff. And I remember hearing him, and he was with Fred Pletch, I believe, was doing the CCHA and Fox Detroit. And Matt Shepard was where I heard that from. And then I've heard it. I think Darren Pang uses it. And then I've heard it over the years, but I remember it from Matt Shepard at Fox Detroit back when I was playing.
Wow. We just got finished.
That sounds kind of weird.
Sounds weird. It's not like 99 Lions. I don't think that should be the catchphrase.
Weird out of context moment.
Wow. We just got finished.
Just kidding. Cappy, how many times has he been on the show? 11 times. 11 times.
What's that?
I don't know what happened after that 11th time.
That was in overtime, right? Yeah. That was after the goal.
That was after the goal. We just got finished.
Yeah, well.
Kissing his ass. Let's kiss it. Goal.
Great show, guys. Fun overtime.
Man. Awesome.
I'm a little buzzed. It's fun.
And it's early. Usually, if I'm in Florida, it's like almost 1 o'clock in the morning.
It's
an owl anyway. You guys, I think, know that by now. So I'll be on the show Friday talking the games, the Big Ten Today show, and then studio with Pizzo on Saturday. And I'm still, I don't know if I'll get it, but I'm still begging to get they're going to air somebody's quarterfinal for the first round, maybe on on Bally or maybe FS1 or 2, most likely Michigan series.
BTN Plus.
Well, all of them will be on that, but I don't know if it'll be on BTN Plus if they're on TV. I don't know.
Well, if they're on Big Ten Network.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, so I don't know how that works.
When they're on FS, you got to have a YouTube or a Hulu to get that one.
Right. But I don't know if it's on FS1. I don't know how that works because I think last year the Michigan and Michigan State games were on FS1 and FS2, I think.
Yeah.
But it's been different every year. So like the one year I did with Voster's, and then so I'm still like begging and pleading because there's a fact for you. I've done games in every stadium except for Yost, and I keep begging for it. I'm like, I know Fred's there, but he can do the radio. I'll drive there. What do you want me to do? You want me to sleep in the car?
Fred can call the game too. Fred does a great call.
Yeah, I think, and I don't want to because. So Ben Holden is not going to be on any of the semifinal or the final. I think Dan has the final with Clymer. I think Dan and Jason maybe have the semifinals. So I think they gave Ben this quarterfinal series call. So I'm still up there. But I'm like, hey, I respect Fred. I'm not trying to, but he's done a lot. And throw a bone my way. I don't know. I don't know if they think I'm good enough for it, but I'm still trying to get it. So, still unknown there. And then
gotta get that feedback, Cappy. Gotta get that feedback.
You know what? And then the other thing is, I'll be in the studio for the semifinal, but I am not going to be at the champion. I will not be around for the championship if it's on Saturday because my brother is getting married on the 18th.
Congrats.
So, yeah. And it's funny. There's one last story and you get rid of me. So my brother announces his engagement. We have a little like party with his fiance's family, a little barbecue in September. And they start talking about wedding dates. And I'm like, and they're like, March. I'm like, motherfucker. This is the 1 month, like March and April, early April. Do not do that, please.
What do you? Well, wait a second. Hold on. What did you just pour there, Viggs?
My pour.
Ooh, what is that?
Little Eagle Rare.
Oh yeah.
Just a little. I was gonna have it.
Little final.
Yeah.
So
I already had.
We're sitting around. More brand. Yeah. This will not long. So we're sitting around having a nice September, nice day, barbecue, yada yada, and they like throw out the first date they throw out was like March 26th, and I'm like, hell no. I'm like, no way. Now I didn't know I had gotten a verbal like, I can't ink you into this, but pencil you in for a regional thing from a boss. So I wasn't 100%, but I'm like, 82, and I'm like, no. I told them, I'm like, nope. And then they said, well, how about the 18th? I'm like, well, not ideal, but that's better than the 25th or 20th for many reasons. Like, I don't want to miss the Big Ten championship, but I'm not missing calling a regional. So that's how I pretty much.
And regional weekend's my favorite weekend of the year anyway. I mean, 3 days was used to be saying 4 days. It's
I like now. You see every game all the way through.
You do. I just like that Saturday was just so filled.
6 games.
Yeah. I love that.
And it feels like the regional crews have been pretty consistent.
Mm-hmm.
So once you get in, maybe you're doing this for the next 20 years, Cappy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I did that thing in Lake Placid.
The university games,
which helped because it was calling games. And really before this last weekend, I hadn't called any other games. I'd been doing studio stuff. So that helped to like just get a little rust off a little bit. And then the first period was a little rough on Friday, I thought, for myself personally. But that was it wasn't produced by ESPN, but I was recommended by them for that gig. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know. Just trying to do it as well as I can, and hopefully they ask me back. I mean, I think that's what most guys hope for, but hopefully I can continue doing them, and I don't know, do more of everything. Go to, like I said, NBC if they like. I'm an independent contractor, so
yep.
Big Ten's been great to me. I would put them first as much as I can, but Daddy's got to work, so. I love to see NBC and more games be put on the air for everybody. You guys are pretty lucky to have almost every game on TV without it.
Yes.
So,
But it still doesn't make people happy. It's
no,
amazing.
because for years that's how it's always been. You guys
Yeah.
run West and North or whatever they call
But
it. All those
people
years.
also have, hindsight 2020 knowledge about what it used to be like.
Yes.
Like when they went to Michigan Tech, when they went to Colorado College, when they went to Anchorage, that when they, it wasn't always like this.
You listen on the radio next to the fire.
Yeah.
Exactly.
January.
Tape delayed games.
Yeah. Go for puck delay.
For the North Dakotas on a Saturday night at Mariucci and that buzz and that, of course.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I
That's
watched
all they remember.
in Omaha watching those games. That was the only time you see college hockey games on TV in the late 90s. There was nothing on TV other than you guys. I don't know if even Nesson played anything. Big Beanpot wasn't on TV. Maybe here and not a lot. So, yeah, it is what it is. So, all right, fellas. Appreciate
All right, guys, I'm going to put this show together and get it published. Thanks, Cappy, for coming on again, man.
Man, anytime. I like breaking.
It's always great to have you, man.
Talk
Say
hockey.
goodbye, everybody. Good night, folks.
Yeah, thanks.